Я подписываюсь, передаю настройку. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
He's not going to be doing. He went to bed at like 2 hours.
Where's the beaver hunter at?
Text him. I've already texted him twice.
Oh, you're not talking about me?
You hunt beavers too, buddy?
I like to smack a beaver around.
I said beaver's almost a different kind of beaver.
Different species, I think.
Yeah.
All right, I think
that season coincides with the cougar season as well.
The cougars.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we can go ahead and start, and then whoever joins us when we get going here. So, all right, AK heads, we are back with another episode of the Talking Lead AK Korner Season 3. This is episode 11 of 12. So we've got one more coming at you after this one, and it promises to be a big episode. This is a big episode. I think this is the most people we've had on the AK Korner in the 3 years that we've done it. And I'm just going to let each of you go around the room here in just a minute, introduce yourselves, tell a little bit about yourselves. But this episode, Lead Heads, we're going to be talking about AK competitions. We've got some of the competitors, the people that compete in these competitions around the country, and maybe even around the world. I don't know. Some of you guys might have traveled abroad to do some of these competitions. And we've got one of the organizers here with us. And we'll introduce him in just a minute. So if you didn't get a chance, make sure you go back to last month's AK Korner. And Jeremy, were you on that one with us?
I don't know.
We talked about the AK-74 last episode.
No, I listened to that one. He wasn't.
Okay. What'd you think? Did you think it was a good episode? Did we cover?
Yeah, I mean, I learned stuff.
basics?
I mean, there was a lot of talk about the 545, which, I'm of the opinion that the 545 is the better round, but my heart says 762 by 39, so that's what I have my Galil in. But,
okay.
Hearing the more breakdown of the 545, and, I'm kind of AK curious, I guess, if you want to call it that, and then learning more about the nuance, because holy cats are these AK competitors. I mean, the people who attend these matches, understand the nuances, the magazine types, all of that stuff.
They are in it balls deep, definitely. They know their stuff, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the differences in going to an AK competition or event, because it's an event. It's not just a competition versus like going to a 3-gun competition. The AK people really know how to do it up. So we'll talk about that. And we're going to take listener questions as well. I made a post like I normally do, and it looks like we got really good questions and turnout on that in a short amount of time that I had it posted. So we'll go to Facebook, we'll go to Instagram. If any of you guys reposted it on your pages, we'll take questions from those as well. And we've got giveaways to do like every episode. And we've got our sponsors, Seal One. We'll be giving away a Seal One care package, CLP, perfect cleaning products for your AK-47s, your Galils, your ARs, your boats, your knives, whatever it may be. This stuff is it. It's everything. Only one thing you need, Seal One and done. Got a big care package of that we're going to give away. We've got Mission First tactical dump trays with the AK Korner logo on it. And this is one we had specially made up for Red October that Brian had taken out for Red October and gave to some of the lucky people out there. I've got one. I don't know if we got any more of these left, but we're going to give away 1 or 2 of these today.
Yeah, that's gangster.
Right. And we've got some other stuff. Are you going to do a IWI package, Jeremy, today?
We'll see how it goes.
Okay. All right. We'll see how you feel at the end of the show.
I'll always give something away. We always give something away. It's just a matter of what more we give away.
Well, I think everybody appreciates the shirts and the hats and the swag that you put up. So if you do that, I know that they will love it.
Yeah, we'll get that. Maybe we can talk Ken into giving a slot to a class as long as you run a Galil.
Absolutely.
You show up to a class with
I always like to offer the opportunity. So if any of the other guests have anything that they want to put up as giveaways to our listeners that took part in the questionnaire, then feel free.
Matt, there's questions here about AK shotguns. Do you think we can convince Dissident to give one of them away?
Let me ask the Magic 8 Ball. No.
No.
Wait, you don't want to write checks that land as the cash? Come on.
How about a picture of one? An autographed picture of one. That would be something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. That's a close second.
Big show lined up for you guys this episode this month, and we'll go ahead and we'll get into it. So Brian, my co-host, Brian Keeney with Occam Defense Solutions, couldn't make it. We usually give away some Occam lube, so we'll probably give away some Occam lube too. I know he'll want to do that. He's sick. I don't know exactly what's wrong with him, but you guys get on his social medias and send him a message and wish him well. He's probably just under the weather. It's that time of year, you know. Everybody's got a little crud going on. So Jeremy is going to be my co-host this episode.
Yeah.
With another sponsor. Our other sponsors, IWI. So Jeremy, welcome in.
Thank you.
So you're responsible for the majority of this gang that's here joining us right now. So,
don't put that on me.
So we were at
this is on you.
We were at my first Kalash event, and it was at Kalash Bash, Texas, and I had a great time there. And I guess I kind of got acclimated to the AK events, the AK competition shootings there, and boy, oh boy, was it an eye-opener. It was a great time. Everybody was having a good time. I didn't see anybody that was disgruntled or anything other than just dog-ass tired because of the heat and whatnot. But Jeremy, talk about that event and IWI, and this is where I met most of these guys, was at that event.
Yeah. So appreciate you having us on here. So yeah, Kalash Bash, Texas. This was I think it's the 4th or 5th year it's happened. My years are all kind of jacked up together, but we have supported it ever since it first started. The intent was to add the camaraderie of the community of the AK and the variants of the AK, along with a little bit of competitive shooting to measure yourself and other people, against other people for that matter. And what we found is a lot of the competitors and a lot of the shooters, not only have they not done a lot of movement shooting, but under duress for that matter, and as much as people don't want to admit it, that little 2 by 4 inch piece of block that gives you a beep and is recording time adds a significant amount of duress and stress to anybody as they're shooting. So when you combine that and movement and uneven terrain, you get a solid training, and you get to also understand your weapon system at a high rate of speed, because at the end of the day, everybody is a competitor at heart, type A personalities. So when you're working through a malfunction and you're hearing your buddies laugh and joke at you at the entire time, you learn to clear them a little faster. Or if you didn't see a route or a hole in the ground because you were too busy focusing on something else and things in that nature, not understanding how to pick up your feet, you figured out real quick that you needed to work through those problems. So Kalash Bash this year was always in Texas so far. It's at the ranch. Typically it was in the spring, and they moved it to October. And then you compile the other Kalash events throughout the year with AK Masters over in South Carolina, Thunder on the Tundra up in Wisconsin, and then you've got Red October Cold Wars at Rio Salado in Phoenix, Arizona, and then the original, or the granddaddy, I guess you could say, of them all, which is Red October Las Vegas. And then you add Ken Allen's event here that's happened last couple of years up in New Hampshire, and basically is the freaking Arctic for all intended purposes. So growing population, as James said earlier, the camaraderie and the people of these events really make it what it is. And it just, not only are they super proud to be a part of the community, but just super proud of their weapon system. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced before with M4s or anything in that nature, and M4s and M4. But, you know, these gentlemen and even and women for that matter, you know, they have their Bulgarians, their Romanians, their Russians, their Chinese, you know, and they can tell you everything about it down to where the magazine spring came from for that matter. And then we come in there with the Israeli-made Galils and catch a little bit of heat because, you know, we're some people say we're an AK and some people say we don't. At the end of the day, I think they're just mad because we're winning, and that's all that matters.
They're just pissed because you're at the winner's table.
They hate us because they ain't us.
I like that. So that was kind of a really good introduction into the AK competitions. The AK Masters, I hadn't heard of that one. Tundra and the Thunder, I hadn't heard of that one either. Where are those again?
So AK Masters is in South Carolina. It's put on by Palmetto State Armory. Adam and Matt could speak to that because they shot it this year. I believe Matt won it, and overall, and then his division, and I think Adam won his division as well. And then Thunder, whatever it is, Thunder on the Tundra, it's in Wisconsin.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's run by Chad Sabuka, and it's Kalashnikov on Instagram.
Yep,
it's a cool
yep.
Very cool. Well, let's do this. Let's go around the room here and have everybody introduce themselves. And we'll start with James.
Hey, I'm James Leffler. I've been a competitive shooter since 2012. Before that, I used to race cars. So like Jeremy said, I'm a type A competitive person. Used to race cars with the old man, grew up doing that. And then the old man retired. I got a house, got married, so stopped doing that. You know, wanted to do something, needed some sort of outlet, you know, get that adrenaline rush. So found guns, started racing guns. That evolved into a career. So I work in the industry now. I used to work at JP Rifles, and now I work at Infinity Firearms, making pistols. So liking that quite a bit, and just been dipping my toes as, you know, I continue to shoot disciplines. I'm a three-gunner mostly, shoot three-gun, multi-gun, rifle, pistol, shotgun, and I do USPSA as well. NRL 22 with a little bit of precision, and then been dipping my toes and getting into the AK. I'm left-handed, so it kind of lends itself to the platform quite well, even though the Galil has kind of made it so broken people like me is a little more difficult, but Dissident Arms did me a solid and got this thing back to a right side charging, so I'm in like Flynn, and I've been really loving it. Like you guys say, it's when I describe to people at work, like, where are you going, what match you going to, and, you know, they're interested because they're all shooters too. So, you know, they tell three-gun, you know, like, you know, it's a match where a party happens, then AKs are a party where a match happens. So I like it quite a bit, and I'm really enjoying the community that comes out of it, and just people are there. The sole dedication seems to be to have fun, so I'm enjoying it quite a bit. And thanks for having me on the show.
No, absolutely. And lay off the Red Bull there. You balls like to the wall, brother. Let's go to Adam next.
Yeah, I'm Adam Litke. I've been shooting competition now since about 2012, or a little bit earlier. Started with USPSA, which is mostly pistol. Moved on to PCC once that became a thing, and started shooting for IWI a couple years back. And started with the Tavor, our bullpup. Moved into the Galil when Jeremy came on board, and then went to the Zion, our AR-15 platform as well with that. Shoot the Masada, our new pistol, the optics-ready pistol. And like James said, I've been doing Kalash Bash and Red October, I think 2 years now each. And then AK Masters was the first year, was this year. I won the 7.62 version. James and I are real men. We shoot real calibers. Nothing against Kitzmiller up there, but, you know, real man caliber. And like James said, when it's Red October and Kalash Bash, it really is like a party where some guys like, you know what we should do is we should shoot guns on the first day and then party all night long and then shoot guns the second day and then just party all night long the next night. And, you know, like Kalash Bash, there's a bonfire that's got to be 30, 40 feet tall, and there's literally a rave tent. There's like lasers and lights going on. And then the next day, everybody's like, all right, let's go shoot some AKs. It's a great experience. AK Masters was a good one, and can't say enough good things about Jeremy. Jeremy's brought IWI kind of into that foray, sponsoring competitions, and now we sponsoring like freaking every AK competition underneath the sun. And you know, he does a lot. I know we donated a bunch of guns this year to different things, and it really brings a lot to the community. And you know, I'm excited to see what happens next year.
Oh yeah. And as we're going around, if there's an additional competition that you're aware of, an AK competition, give it a shout out also.
And so I think it's important to know that while we speak to the competition as we are competitive shooters, it is not to underestimate what the event really is. And it's really an event with a competition involved with it, right? Yeah. You know, Kalash Bash had 800 people, but only 235 of them shot the match. Red October had just over 1,100 people come through the gate, and 355 signed up for the match, 323 shot the match. So, and that's all we can feasibly get through in a number of days, and right, like we can't get enough people through. But the original Red October, we had 115 shooters, and now we're up to almost 400. So more and more people are coming. We are all competitive shooters, or in Ken Allen's place, a competitive shooter, but also a defense tactics instructor for many years. But don't underestimate really what it's about, and that is the community and the event for what it's designed and its intent, and that's along with is the competition.
Right. And I think as we get into the discussion here, that's going to become more and more evident. So let's go to Matt now.
Yeah, good afternoon or good evening. My name is Matt Kitzmiller. I've been shooting for about 5 years now. Started in Mesa, Arizona, shooting pistols at a local little firing line at good old Rio Salado there. And a couple old timers had asked me if I was interested in a weekly steel match they have there. So I finally kind of went out there and made a fool of myself for probably a few months anyhow. And then they introduced me to 3-gun, and that's kind of been my bread and butter and what I've been playing in the main game that I play. Probably four years now, I'd say, something like that. I shot a Galil Ace machine gun at the first Red October Cold War last year in Phoenix. And I practiced with it very little. I zeroed the optics, and I thought, you know, I'm going to put the magazine in, and I'm not going to mag dump. And that's pretty much all I did was brrr, the whole time I was supposed to be practicing and learning how the gun shot and where it worked. And I had a blast, man. I went, shot really well, finished well, and then this year when it came to kind of sorting out sponsors, I'd met Jeremy around the same time that I was kind of shopping for something that fit a little bit better. So IWI plays well with another sponsor of mine and a couple other guys on here, Dissident Arms.
You can mention them, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. It just kind of fell into place, and you know, Jeremy and I kind of talked about the AK Masters event, and I didn't know, and the AK community is much different than anything that I've ever played in. The club that I came from is a very conservative pistol club. So going to the AK events, it was like, you know, I met Adam out at the Clinton House in South Carolina, and it was like constantly doing this and watching the people walk by. But the passion was there, so that's what kind of got me hooked. And there was some pretty fun competition, a lot of camaraderie. So I put a couple more AK matches on my schedule this year, and Kyle and Adam and I got out there, and James and most all of us on this call actually got out there and hammered all over the place. So yeah, it's been fun, enjoying it.
Nice. And Kyle, are you still with us? Did we lose Kyle? Hey, Kyle. Kyle. All right, we'll come back to Kyle. He must have got arrested by the Ford police. Ken Allen?
Yeah, man. So thank you for having me on with you guys. It's a real pleasure and an honor. You know, basic background, you know, as Jeremy had alluded to, my focus is slightly different than a lot of the other guys that are on the screen tonight. I am mostly a defensive level type shooter and instructor. And I have competed. I shot IDPA for a while. I still do occasionally. And I'm going to start shooting more 2- and 3-gun competitions. I shot competitively in college. That was mostly small bore, as well as high power NRA types shooting. But my passion is instruction. You know, I thoroughly believe that knowledge is most powerful when given to another. That's kind of my mantra. And I've always had an affinity for the Kalashnikov platforms, whether they be the traditional AKs or whether they be the Galils or anything else in between. I started Kalashnikoving, as some people call it, back in 1988. That was the first time I had an opportunity to shoot AK. Yeah, a little while back. It was a B West receiver, believe it or not, built with Chinese parts. So, you know, moved on to a Norinco gun after that, and then eventually moved my way up and into the Galil platforms, which Jeremy helped me out with. And IWI has been a wonderful supporter for a long time. I've been around this industry for quite a bit. Some of you might know I worked for one of the other companies for many, many years, about 8.5, 9 years. I taught at one of the nationally and internationally acclaimed academies. They sent me around the country and outside of CONUS in order to teach individuals, police departments, SWAT teams, other instructors, so on and so forth. And, you know, it was actually the AK platform that drove me to take a very deep step out of my own. And I was very fortunate to land on my feet eventually and make something of this. The AK world and the people in the AK world, as has been noted, are absolutely amazing people. They are of heart rather than of you know, any other kind of substance. They literally do this because they love it. It was also, you know, a couple of guys have said how people really get into it. They understand the intricacies of where these firearms and the platforms come from, where the parts come from, how they're assembled, where they're assembled, you name it. Yeah. They have far more in-depth knowledge and background in some of the intricacies of these systems than I'll ever be able to absorb. And I am always learning stuff from my students and folks in the community that join us.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing about the AK too, is that, you know, there's no one company that's exactly like the other. You know, there's always something different about them, and you know, I think that's probably out of necessity why shooters have to learn, you know, their own AK, and you know, all the little nuances about their brand and their AK that they have, which country it's from, and the parts that it uses, and I think that plays a big part in the nostalgia that they eventually get into and the history of it. So, and that's the great thing about the AK, is it does have a deep, rich history.
It really does, and these folks love to share it around. You know, we have folks coming in to our events. You know, the event that I run is Kalashtober. Typically has been in October, and we moved it to September this past year. We were sold out last year and sold out this year. It's a different style event. It's based in and around defensive types shooting, but we have a competition aspect to it. As Jeremy alluded to, that is actually how you start to really truly learn. It's one thing to be on the semi-square range and start moving around, but when you add that complexity of not knowing where the targets are, what the targets are, having to make intelligent decisions on what to shoot, when to shoot, how to shoot it, that's where really the rubber meets the road. But our people have come from probably about 17, 20 different states. Yeah. And, you know, even though we are up in the Arctic, up in New Hampshire, people do come out. We usually attract people out of the New England states, out of some of the Midwestern states and some of the Southern states, and as far west and south as Texas this year and last year. Really great folks, you know, and most people know I do travel throughout the country instructing, and Texas is one of our stops. Florida is a stop. This next year, we're looking at being in Nevada and Arizona. We do go to Illinois, and wherever else we might be invited to do some work.
Tennessee, baby, Tennessee, come down. Let's make it happen.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's set it up. Let's do it. I'm sure we'll be back to Florida pretty soon. I know we're going back to Texas. Those guys are great. We love getting together with those folks.
Hell yeah!
But yeah, the crew that comes out, these people are they're amazing. It is a community. It truly is, and that's what the events are based upon. It doesn't matter how much instruction, how much competition. It's all about the folks getting together. And no exaggeration, within 20 minutes to an hour, a good portion of them have exchanged telephone numbers and or emails and or are on social media with one another.
Yeah,
it's amazing, and it's a true pleasure and a blessing to be part of this.
So a question that I get a lot from our listeners, or if I'm out and I run into somebody, they're like, how do I get into competition shooting? How do I get involved with one of these, with one of these shoots? Let's just kind of go around the table and talk about your
Can you guys hear me now? Sorry.
Well, look here. There's Kyle.
There
There he is.
Jesus, man.
I think I liked it better with the camera off, but okay.
Still no camera. I downloaded Skype now and still no
Oh,
camera.
I see your face.
We
Don't
see
you
you.
worry, Bubba.
No, you're good.
Oh, wow. Really?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm not in the spirit world anymore.
So,
Yeah, don't be doing any stuff that's legal in California on the camera, but
Dude, that's like everything I do.
so Kyle, introduce yourself to our listeners.
All right. So I'm Kyle Litzi. Been shooting competitively for about 5 years now. Before that, I played like everybody else. Everybody else had some vice of that got their adrenaline fix. For me, I played competitive paintball for like 12 years. The kind with the air bunkers and stuff, or if you ever seen that on TV. So yeah, I did that. I was always into guns. I guess I thought a boogaloo was coming before anybody knew what a boogaloo was. Like I bought a SKS when I was 14 and started stockpiling ammo. So
You sound like Andrew. Yeah.
yeah.
A buddy of mine's been on the show. Yeah.
So yeah, I started. I've been shooting my whole life, real guns. Shot paintball like super competitively, and then I actually got into this because I heard about Red October. That was the first thing I saw on YouTube, and it looked awesome. And I had AKs by that time. I didn't even own an AR, so yeah, went and shot a USPSA match to kind of like learn the rules. Found that locally. And just fell in love with it. A buddy of mine forced me to come to a 3-gun match the next weekend, and I didn't want to do it because I thought the shotguns with the tubes sticking out looked stupid and wanted nothing to do with it. And here I am. I shoot like, multiple 3-gun matches, usually place pretty well. You asked about international matches. I actually shot the Rifle World Championship in Sweden in 2019.
What is that? The Rifle World Championship.
So that's IPSC rifle. Like I'm sure you're familiar with IPSC. IPSC with pistols.
Yeah.
For rifle in Europe, they don't have any 3-gun matches really. It's each discipline individually. So I went and shot IPSC rifle. It's a hit factor scored match. There's about 600 people from all over the world, and I flew to Sweden with my AR-15, which was pretty cool. Didn't know you could do that, and it was probably
that'd have been shitty if you couldn't, right?
What's that?
I said that would have been shitty if you found out that oops, I wasn't supposed to bring that here.
yeah. I think once I filled out all the forms and everything, it was good. But yeah, that was great. It was a 30-stage match, and
Wasn't that on a military base there, right?
And yeah, I was on a military base, and everything was like made by carpenters. Like all the stages were on these platforms. They thought of everything, like anything that was going to get shot and blown up by muzzle brakes. They had 20 pieces to swap out and change it for every squad, and it was just amazing, the level of no resetting. They had people to reset everything, and the quality of the match was like unbelievable.
So you could take any kind of rifle you wanted.
So it's hit factor. So 223, you actually have to chrono. You have to make hit power factor, and basically you can make minor with a 223 or 5.56, and it's not powder puff. You got to load them pretty close to like what a factory round would be, and then you can make major with 308. And basically the targets, there's so many targets that are far, it's not worth shooting major. It's totally nobody placed well shooting major, basically.
Cool. Very good. So we got an international competitor here. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. And yeah, I was going to mention. So yeah, Jeremy hit me up this year about shooting for IWI, and I'd been shooting the AK matches that we're talking about for years, and I've won a few Red Octobers and Kalash bashes, and I already thought I kind of made my gun unfair, and then I started shooting a Galil this year, and I was like, oh yeah, this is like totally unfair. It's it's a smooth shooting, really great platform. And I shoot a 7.62 by 3.9. Even I agree that 5.45 is a superior caliber, but man, if you're going to shoot an AK match, I like shooting an AK caliber.
So we're kind of headed in the direction of if somebody's wanting to get into the competition shooting, and you said you came from the paintball world, and you watched a YouTube video, and that inspired you to get involved in competition shooting, Kyle.
Yeah.
And then you had a buddy that invited you, and kind of it was over from there. Just go around the room here and just the others talk about kind of how you got involved with it, maybe give some tips to our listeners on how they can get involved and take part. Who wants to start? Adam looks like he wants to talk this one.
Yeah. Awkward silence. So I actually started like Kyle did actually. I started with paintball forever ago and traveled around doing that, and then wanted to try shooting real guns. My dad wanted to as well, and so we went to a USPSA match. And honestly, in my opinion, it's the easiest way to start shooting competition is go to USPSA. That's United States Pistol or whatever it is. That's the Pistol Association, right?
Competition
Association. And USPSA, if you look that up. And that's a pistol only, or it's a pistol caliber carbine. And it's one of the easiest ways to start. You pretty much need one thing. You need your gun, you need a holster, you need some magazines. That's honestly about it. And if you have a pistol caliber carbine, you need a bag. For those rules, but it's one of the funnest things. It's definitely got some interesting people in there. There's a lot of cool guys like us there too that that'll talk shop with you all the time and have fun. And that's honestly, I mean, for $20 you can go out there and shoot.
Right.
And I mean, at least in my opinion, the only way to get into it is just to go do it. I mean, you're going to go out there and the main goal is being safe and learning. And just meet people and talk to them, and you'll upgrade your equipment over time. And I'm going to guess a lot of us probably started with, a Glock 19 or a Glock 17 or something like that. And, probably a Glock holster, Glock 34, the friggin' holster that came with it, the 3 mags you got with it, and, some Blazer brass or something like that. And that's how you start. It's the best thing you can do. And you're going to learn so much. And the shooting community is unlike any other. I mean, the AK community is a whole different community, but the shooting community in general, those dudes will give you the shirt off their back. They will, give you tools if you need them. They'll give you, I've given people ammo before when we had newer shooters who needed ammo and didn't bring enough. I mean, these dudes will, they'll give you $100 and stuff to make sure your first time is just a baller time and you want to come back. And it's, it's hard to find that anywhere else where guys who are generally alpha mentalities will just do everything and anything to make sure your first time makes you want to come back a second time and a third time and a fourth time and a fifth time. And the guys in this room are definitely those guys. I mean, it really is like this group will do that. So that's
been my experience too, to not only just the AK, but any of the shooting competitions, the 3 guns. I mean, I've even seen guys let other guys use their guns. Their guns will break down for whatever reason. They're like, here, shoot mine. And they're more than happy to do that because they want them to see how good their shit is. It's like
that's what I did that at Clash.
They want to brag about how good their equipment is.
Yeah, I wanted to show off the Galil. So a guy in our squad had his optic go down, the battery died, no big deal, and he didn't have a battery or anything like that. I'm like, hey, you can run my gun. We were in the same division, like completely set. He's like, is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, you're gonna put 40 rounds on it. That's totally okay. Cool. And he got to see how awesome the Galil was, and he thanked me afterwards. I'm like, no, man, it's no big deal. Like, I'm happy to help. I wish,
The old idea that AKs don't break, in my experience, I love AKs, but they break, and they break way more than ARs. And good friend of mine, Jay Lizo, his went down at Red October just a couple weeks ago, and my Galil made it through all of October without being cleaned, all the matches, and ran like a champ. I'm like, hey, let's add one more match to it, and he shot that Galil the whole match, and did great with it.
Well, so to caveat, to add to that, what you were saying, Lefty, is that I think the biggest reason why shooters and like actual shooters are so willing to hand off their rifle and or pistol and or shotgun, depending on where you're at, and Ken, you can probably speak to this too, is that there's a lot of people that just don't fully understand what a tuned rifle system is capable of doing, or a tuned pistol for that matter. They get it out of the box, they take it to the range, it's great, it's factory setup and whatnot. And a lot of people have this misconception that if I'm going to put competition, and I'm air quoting competition product on there, that somehow it's going to make it less reliable. And when people tell me that, I'm like, you realize that there are people in this conversation right now that make their living based off of pulling a trigger at a high level, racing a clock. Why would they put something that's not reliable on the weapon system? But the bulk of the time, these people are when they're handing a shotgun rifle or pistol over, and at the AK matches, it's awfully just an AK. For any stretch of imagination, it's a tuned weapon system, a finely tuned weapon system, and their minds are blown. They're like, my gun can get to this?
Yeah.
You mean to tell me it can go to that, and I'm not going to lose reliability? I'm not going to lose the durability? No, actually, you're putting less stress on the gun because we're pulling some gas off the system. We're making these mag changes easier. We're doing things that are racing a clock, but it's doing nothing but enhancing you as a shooter to become a better shooter. And 9 times out of 10, their minds are blown. Like, wait a minute, like there's these parts available. I'm in. Where do I go buy them?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that goes a long way too with the sponsorships, and for the shooters to be able to showcase who's got them to their point in their career at this time too, and that's an awesome way to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like when I set out to go get shooters right for IWI, honestly, I could care less how much you're going to win. I'm looking for two things. One, how good of an ambassador you're going to be to the company, because at the end of the day, I have that mentality like the military does. If you're going to represent my company, you're going to represent it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And with that, I'm also looking with people who can think, and not necessarily think like just quickly, whatever. But, Kyle and Matt and the rest of these guys, I mean, they are constantly sending us feedback. Ken as well are sending us feedback on what the weapon systems are doing in the field. Where can we improve on the next generation? And all this information is being pushed back to our engineers in Israel, saying, have you entertained this idea? Have you looked at this? At the end of the day, we're not 100% engineers, but we're trigger pullers and competitive shooters, and just really anybody that's a true shooter in the United States is putting more rounds in a non-controlled environment through their weapon systems in an average month than most people are doing it in a year. So, when we're looking at updating the weapon system, these guys on this call and many others are getting phone calls and prototypes, and they are absolutely destroying product in the process to tell me, like, where can we continue to improve? And, there's plenty of trigger pullers out there, but can you tell me where I can improve is going to be the next question.
I think people see the value in that. They see the value in competition shooters. There's proof in that. I mean, like 1-6 optics, LVPO optics. As far as I know, that kind of started in competition shooting.
Yeah. And it's really taken off, even in the defensive realm. Guys are shooting at competition as well as from the defensive side. It can't be beat for all the lengths and distances you can use that thing for.
Yeah, and I think that's what competitions are good for also, is it's pushing a product to its limit so that the manufacturers can see how far it can go, and then they make the improvements from there, and not only for the competitions but just for everyday use as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's definitely a breath of fresh air. If you've ever if anyone's ever worked, whether it's inside the industry or in their professional career, if you've ever worked with an outfit or a company, a brand, an organization that isn't interested in innovation and isn't interested in growth and isn't interested in real expansion and making a difference and making an impact on their communities and on their cultures and in their industry, it's frustrating. I've worked with a couple companies that they weren't interested in that, and I'd say that's fine. I mean, I guess that's the polite way to say it, but it's not what I'm interested in. And I know all of these guys on this call. I don't know you, Ken, very well, but I know all these other knuckleheads are tinkerers, and we like to twist the tune. And Kyle's probably like the granddaddy of all of us tinkerers on here, because he plays with like machinist tools and things like that. But But it's fun, you know. I think life's too short to take yourself super seriously and not have some fun and twist it and make it better and break it and rebuild it, and doing it with cool people is always a pleasure.
Well, and to answer your question, Lefty, what you said, like, how do you get in competition? Honestly, social media and show up. We bring IWI specifically. I can't speak to everybody, but if we are sponsoring the event, we have spare rifles ready to go, zeroed. We have a bay for anybody to go grab them. All you have to do is get on our squad so that you have an IWI employee with you. You bring the ammunition. We'll make sure it's running. Everything's checking out okay. We put K&S pistons in guns for a reason, just because we can tune the gas depending on your ammunition subset, Adam. And then
I knew that was coming.
Adam, I'm there with you, dude. It's okay.
So we bring extra rifles and we tell people to come out and have a good time. At the end of the day, our goal, and I did an interview at Kalash Bash, and I'll stand behind that. I'm a firm believer in the securement of the Second Amendment is getting people moving and shooting, because standing flat-footed on a range is absolutely the most boringest thing that anybody can do. Do you need to learn the fundamentals? Absolutely. Don't disagree with that. Do you need to be safe? Absolutely. But you can be safe in moving in a direction to the end of the objective under duress with a time, and then the next year you'll be a little faster, and the next year you'll be a little faster. What people don't fully understand sometimes is that they look at the people on this call and they're moving so much faster, and it's like they're not pulling the trigger any faster than you. They're just doing everything in the middle faster. Yeah. And then when you take that and combined it, it's overwhelming. It's nerve-wracking for a lot of people. But don't kid yourself. Every person on this call, very first stage, very first match of the year, their buttholes are equally as tight because they ain't done anything for the last 6 months to, whatever. And they're nervous, right? Ken lives up in the Arctic. Kitzmiller's living up in the Arctic now. Ground's frozen 6 months out of the year. We can't do shit.
We do that.
Yeah. So, Kyle's in freaking California. They don't have very many guns they can actually legally own out there anyway. So
he's probably illegal with one he's got anyway, right?
Yeah. So the biggest thing I can tell people is, get online, practicescore.com, check up, find a match, USPSA, rifle, shotgun. Just show up and take a look what's going on. If you're interested in the AK and the comp block error type weapon systems, there ain't but a handful of them out there, and they advertise them very well. Come out there, bang. Any one of us on this call will gladly hand you a rifle. Hell, I shot the match at Red October and then allowed a dude to run our 21N for 3 stages because he just wanted to. He's like, "Hey man, I'm not going to do very well." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care. It's your ammunition." And he ran a machine gun. He's done that every single year. The very last stage
he ran a machine gun?
Yeah, he puts a D60 in it, and the very last stage of every Red October we have gone to, that is like his
thing.
I could care less about the match. This is what I'm here for. And
D60 works in a 5.56, boys, just for the record.
So
sweet.
Get out there, try it. Even if you don't own it, most people will gladly feed it to you. But you got to sign up for it, right? You got to take that step. That's the key. You have to take the step of saying, you know what, I'm probably going to be humbled, and that's okay, because I'm going to come back and stomp you next year and rock on. And I encourage that, right? If you're going to put the effort into beating some of these top level shooters, Matt and Kyle, Josh, Zach, Max Leograndis, and those boys that are very high level shooters in their disciplines. If you're going to put that effort in there, rock on, dude. They want that. I promise you. They want you to bang with them on a high level.
And it's funny, Jeremy, you were talking about how mesmerized people are that you can do these things to their guns. And I think people who haven't shot competition, they don't even understand their gear. If they have a great gun or a crappy gun, a gun that recoils a lot or a gun that shoots soft, it doesn't make any difference. And they have no clue until they start doing stuff under pressure and realizing oh, I need to shoot this target, this little steel AC zone at 50 yards twice as fast as I can. And it takes forever because they're getting jarred around and by their stock AK-47 with a slant muzzle brake and untuned gas system. And then you start to realize the things that are holding you back, and then you can make like educated decisions. Like, it's not only that the pressure and getting better as a shooter and it affecting your shooting skills, but also changing your gear in ways that make sense.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're not going to know that until you go shoot.
Maybe that wish plate carrier isn't the greatest, and you won't know until you're on the clock.
and the thing is that in this community, there's divisions for that. Armor division, you're in full helmet, full kit, real plates, and full water kits, and all mag changes are coming from, one can come from the belt, and then the rest have to come from the chest. And that's an entire division. It's a category, I believe. I misspoke. It's a category. You still have to shoot, obviously, your 7.62, 5.45, or 5.56, respectively, with irons or optics. But at the end of the day, if you want to run around in the Texas heat or the Las Vegas metro area in heat and full kit, rock on. There's a division for that.
So let's talk about that. I think that answers our question on how people can get involved in this. It's just, find an event and go to it and do it. Your local ranges probably have things set up, so you could go to your local range. You can always email me, talkinglead@gmail.com. Let me know where you're at, and I'll find an event for you to attend. Same thing with these guys. I'm sure they'd be happy to do the same.
Using, like Jeremy said, using social media. I mean, I know most of us, I'm sure all of us on this call are constantly fielding, DMs about all kinds of, whether it be like basic gunsmithing to how to get started shooting. But it's humbling. So a lot of people, they don't want to take the first step, and that first step's the most humbling and challenging one. But it's super rewarding after that. You learn, you grow. It sucks. It's awesome. It sucks. It's awesome. You're nervous, and I haven't gotten past the nervous part. I think I'll probably stop shooting if I'm not nervous anymore. Because I kind of, like everybody else, I came from a competitive, all kinds of competitive things before I came to shooting, and it's an absolute blast. It's a hoot.
Well, that means you're getting complacent if you're not nervous anymore.
Yeah.
You didn't spend all that money with Ken Allen to learn defensive tactics and not have a place to apply defensive tactics.
Yeah. You're probably going to be waiting for bad guys to come for a long ass time. You might as well go shoot some paper and some steel while you're at it.
Heck yeah. So let's do this. Let's kind of go around the table here, and because I know a lot of the questions are going to be, what are your setups, what are you running, type thing. But before we get into that, I want to talk about some of the events and the events that you guys have personally attended and shot, and rank them maybe like hardest, funnest. Let's put little labels on them. So as you're going through talking about the events that you've shot in and that you've done, label them as, one of those kind of categories.
So let's just let's start it easy. So we'll start with AK Masters.
Okay.
So I think that's going to be probably just Kitzmiller and Adam.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, so AK Masters is that's one that it was definitely an AK match, and they're starting the community feel now. It was the first year this year, so they're just getting into that. Really well put on. The stages were very, very good, and we had people there from literally a guy who unboxed a Galil at the event, put a mag in it, and walked out and started shooting, to guys like Kitzmiller and Jeff or James, and guys who were like running guns. And so it can go from anything to everything. And that was one of those events that IWI was there, Distant Arms was there, and I don't know how many questions we fielded, how many guns we helped set up, how many guns we helped tune, how many magazines we lent out, how much ammo we gave away. It was that match specifically was an awesome match, and one of the best parts was the overall winner. He got a tracksuit, and they had him do his squat with his AK for the photos.
Awesome.
And he's a big dude. The dude's like 6'3", he's in a tracksuit, sweating like a whore in church.
Nice.
And that sweatsuit was something you'd never want to have after that, because that thing was full of sweat. But because it's in middle of June, it's like 90 to 100 degrees out in freaking South Carolina at Clinton House, and the dude's in a full velour tracksuit after winning.
That's great.
And he shot a PCC, which shouldn't count, but whatever.
That's stuff you don't see at a like a normal 3-gun or AR competition, stuff like that.
No, 100%.
Now, you said this one was. Yeah, go ahead.
That is the AK. That is the AK crowd. That is. It is the salt of the earth. And honest to God, Jeremy knows my favorite events of the entire year are AK matches because you just can't beat it.
Now, you said this was a Palmetto State Armory put on event.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, cool. And who else shot it? Kyle?
I shot it.
Okay,
Adam and I shot on the same squad, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but I'm pretty sure you and I were the only like normal like people that compete regularly, and most of the other folks in our squad, I think maybe they shoot a couple AK events a year if they've ever shot any. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think if you would have asked a survey question, they'd been like, so these two guys in jerseys were running around like Superman, diving all over the place, shooting stuff really fast, and we don't know what happened, but man, their times were pretty decent.
Yeah, so that was my first. I mean, my first AK event was last year at my home club in Mesa, which I had a part in helping and designing and coming up with different concepts. And so it's basically my normal 3-gun community with some different guns. So this was my first real like AK event, and it was an absolute. It was crazy. It was a culture shock, really. I mean, I'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, it had a 3-gun, maybe like a USPSA kind of feel to it. So it wasn't a super hard match, but it was technical enough where those of us that shoot regularly could really go out there and push it and have some fun. It was a good blend of up close and wide open paper targets and tight targets and some no shoots and some steel at a little bit of distance, and it was an absolute blast, man. I'd never been to the Clinton House. That facility was a pretty good choice. I brought my dad out there, my side by side, and ran around and had an absolute blast, man. It was good. It was super fun.
And for those that are listening to this when this is published, they are having a Winter Wonderland match there, Palmetto State Armory AK match called Winter Wonderland at the Clinton House there in Clinton, South Carolina in December, I believe.
Very cool.
Nice. What's the
next match would have been Kalash Bash, and I believe James and everybody else has been there. So we'll let James and Kyle take this one for a little bit for a ride.
Oh, I was going to say there was the Arizona match before that. There was the Red October Cold War.
Cold War, yeah.
Well, I was going to do the Red Octobers together.
Oh, gotcha. My bad.
Let Jeremy run the show. Come on.
Yeah, I'm the assistant here. Hush, you
co-host.
Yeah. All
Don't give Jeremy any power. This just goes right through his head.
I love it.
Straight.
Yeah. It's the less I have to do.
Yeah. So go with KB.
All right. So as the resident Texan, I'll take the Texas match. It was a good time. It's held in Eagle Lake, the ranch at Texas. It was a great time, held on by Clayco, and he had one other partner from Kyber Customs.
Third Pin Threads, Tony.
Yeah, and then Lan and Mike from Dissident hailed the match. So, like I said, these things are events. So it had 700, and like I said, 800 people at the match, and only 250 competitors. So they had twice the number of people who were just spectating, checking out the vendors, hanging out. I mean, it's really a community event. Match was 2 days. Great event. I thought it was a little bit more difficult, but it was very accessible to a new shooter and the new shooter community. But for the people who wanted to go fast, they could. And it had a lot of things that you would normally not see. Again, when you're stuck on a flat range, there was a stage where you would shoot from an elevated position on a ridge down into a ravine. So you got to shoot at different ranges. You got to shoot at steel. A lot of new shooters to this community, it's not shooting steel at distance. It's not a thing that they normally get to do. This got to let you stretch the legs on your AK a little bit, show the platform that it can do it, especially my Galil. Ran great. Was able to ring steel, no problem. And it was a good time. Like I said, it was a good blend of challenge and fun, and it really delivered on that aspect. The community aspect was great. The vendors were great, and there was a big, huge bonfire with a DJ and lights and lasers. It was really an event, and the people made it a great time.
And they have a campground too.
Oh yeah, I think Kalash Bash is a great match because the stages are like these wide open Texas stages where you have a lot of movement, and you have like none of the target presentations are super difficult, but it still is going to challenge the top shooters to really weed out who's the best shooter. But at the same time, like you said, it's accessible to anybody. Everybody's going to be anybody who shows up with a gun that's zeroed, which is not everybody that showed up. As Clay said in the awards, like, you guys did really bad. But it's totally accessible, and it's super fun because you got all this movement, shooting on the move, you're running different angles, you're shooting the gun unshouldered over the top of a wall and, underneath little slits. So as far as that goes, I think it's a great balance for an AK match. And then as far as like the culture, Texas has got its own AK culture. It's its own beast there. And they get wild, man. I pulled up to that party that they had going Saturday night, and there's just like a giant tree in the middle of a field that they just torched. There's a huge bonfire, like you said, and music blasted. I'm like, wow, this is cool. Yeah,
they actually have a campground that everybody can go to, which is cool.
Yep.
So they give you the option, and of course it fills up that people can camp out, and then they have that huge
party. And they bring 18-wheelers in for like air-conditioned showers and bathrooms, so it's not like you're roughing it, but you're not really roughing it. So
no, not for a couple of days. It's.
And the thing about KB that I think it's put. Mike and Land put on the competition side of it, and they are high-level multi-gunner, action shooters in general. So they're not going to test you as far as props. They're going to test you with round count. They're going to run the round counts up. So each stage, it did require you a mag change. So you were having to on the run, on a high walk, high sprint, do a mag change. And then as Ken calls it, rollover prone, junkyard prone, things in that nature. There was many people that didn't understand, because Mike and Land put them in positions where they had to roll the rifle to one direction or the other, and they're missing steel at 50, 60, 70 yards, and they just didn't understand the trajectory of their rounds because they've always ever shot north-south. They've never shot it on an east-west plane, but also having to shoot off of a single 4x4, not understanding that the AK system, while great, it also has its flaws being a non-free float system, and they can't understand why they're missing full-size chest plates at 35 yards and they're shooting 6 foot on top of them. And that's because they're torquing down on their rail that they put on it, on their gun, and it's attached to the barrel, and it's pushing the barrel, to the end of the bay. So people learned a lot about their weapon systems, but that's what Mike and Land do, is they push the round counts, and they put you in interesting positions. And then as far as the event that Clay and Tony put on, look, guys, we shoot 5,000 rounds of 5.56, 5,000 rounds of 7.62 by 39, and I ship no ammo from Kalash Bash to Red October. I had to ship other ammo to Red October. We brought our machine guns. We load the mags. You pay to come to the event, and we let you burn our guns down. They have suppressors. They're machine guns. They're not my guns. I don't care if you melt them. Have a great day.
They tried. They tried, definitely.
Oh, they tried. And then, there's people on staff, KNS, RS Regulate from Scott. Scott and those boys were there. If they're part of that AK community, they are there to sell you product. They're there to help you with any issues. I mean, Scott was installing rails on the range. I had people grabbing me wanting to purchase rifles, and we weren't there selling rifles, but other dealers were there selling rifles. As Adam said, I mean, we had a gentleman when myself and Kitzmiller and another gentleman, Josh Freilich, we RO'd on Friday, and we literally had a guy open his IWI box, pull his IWI Galil, out of a blue cellophane bag, which is what we ship it in, cut the stop sign off, which is basically like, hey, you need to pull the chamber flag out, load his rifle, and said, yeah, I'm ready to go. And I'm like, huh.
Yeah, you are.
Rock on, bud. And he was banging targets, but he was a little bit right. And he goes, hey, man, how do I adjust this right? And I'm like, well, the rear sight has a direction and a number, or a direction and an R. Let's go that way and go. But he had a great time, shot the match great. And, yeah, it's just overall, it's a good time.
And that's a good point. I mean, with people that are dipping their toes in, especially rifle matches, where you might be shooting from 5 yards to 50 yards, maybe 100 yards. I think we fielded those questions, Jeremy, between you, Josh, and I think we fielded those questions once different competitors, especially the newer folks, once they understood what questions to ask, and they didn't understand why they're shooting at 50 yards and their impacts are 6 feet right or 6 feet left. I think those are the questions that we fielded the most, and those are the questions that a lot of people don't know to ask. And knowing where your zero is, and then also knowing where your point of impact is at 10 yards. So say you have a 50-yard zero. Okay, where does it hit exactly at 10 yards? Where does it hit at 25? Where does it hit at 60? At 100? And using paper to really give you a true idea and knowing where those point of impacts are will go a long way, because I saw a lot of people when we were ROing and in our squad when we were shooting that they were getting frustrated, and once they understood where their impacts were, they could make those corrections. And you could tell even the folks that were I'm just here for a good time, I'm not I'm not very competitive, which is kind of the kiss of death. And a lot of people say that, but very few stay in that mindset. Most of them, they want to progress. The competitive side, especially with dudes, we want to do better. And why is that guy whooping my ass? I'm just as strong, or I'm just as fast. And so it kind of pushes and pushes each individual competitor. So
I don't think anybody's as fast as James after he's drank a Red Bull.
He should be banned from drinking Red Bull, period. I'm just saying, I'll put that out there.
He's just a motorhead to begin with, so he's speed. He was built for speed. But I got to get
go fast and take chances. It's not my fault.
So I was mainly on the the spectator side, the event side of that event, and compared to other events that I've been to, it was very interactive. It was more interactive than any range day or competition shoot that I've ever been to, as far as the spectators, that side of things, because they really get you involved. And just like IWI had their booth set up to where people could come and they could shoot, there was other ones that had little mini competitions that were set up that maybe get people in the mindset of maybe next year I'll actually sign up and I'll do the competition. So just to give them a little taste of the timing, the pressure, the stress that they go through in shooting the competition. But they also win prizes. So that's an awesome thing that a lot of other events, non-AK events that I've been to, that they don't really do is they give prizes to not only the competitors but the people who attend just to spectate and support the whole event too. And they're really nice prizes too. I mean, it's not like they're giving away shirts and hats. They're giving away guns to these people. So
yeah, we gave away a Galil, basically a random 2 people selected, and they had to drag race to the end of the range, touch a target, grab a patch, and bring it back to me.
By drag race, make
awesome.
sure you clarify that means foot race, like foot race. Yeah.
Foot race.
Like take their shoes off.
Homeboy in blue jeans and cowboy boots laid the hurt, son. Let me tell you.
Some other obstacles at that range was they had wildlife running around. They had these exotic deer that didn't give a shit that you were shooting guns. Close. No, they'd run right across the range while you're shooting, and you'd have to stop, shooting because they're endangered. You're not supposed to shoot them or whatever, but and you could actually die at that range too because there's rattlesnakes and so
Turtles, dude.
Turtles, snapping turtles, lose a toe.
Don't tell Josh.
So what's our next event? Let's get to our next one.
So the next one is going to be Red October Cold Wars, Rio Salado, Phoenix, Arizona. Kitzmiller and Kyle shot that this year.
Okay.
Go, Kyle.
Yeah, so as far as AK matches go, difficulty-wise, it's on a whole nother level. It's a full-blown 3-gun match difficulty because Matt's old home range there, Rio Salado, they're one of the longest-running 3-gun matches in the country called Superstition 3-gun, and basically you have the same crew there setting it up, the same kind of target presentations and brains building these stages. And for somebody like me, like, you know, a higher level competitor, I thought it was freaking awesome. You had memory stages, you had long range on more than half of the stages, and I'm talking like 200 to 300 yard shots on full size USPSA steels or AC zones. And you even had a moving target, a rotating moving target that only presents over the top of a steel plate at 250 yards.
Nice.
On top of that, you had activator sequences like you'd see in a USPSA short course, or I guess USPSA doesn't do short courses, a IPSC short course. And it, like, you know, kind of complex looking at first sight, like, how am I going to do this? But all totally doable if you got your timing right. Clays, you're shooting clays at 50 yards with your AK. And all around, it was a shooter's match. Like, that was one where people needed to be a little bit more prepared showing up if they wanted to actually hit all the targets. And it seemed like everybody there, the match still flowed great because they've got it dialed. Rio Salado, if you want to shoot a good match, I don't think it really matters if it's Area 2, USPSA, if it's Superstition 3-gun, or if it's a Red October AK match. It's just like a fantastic match that's run really well. Stephanie, match director, does a great job, and all the ROs there do a great job too. And yeah, me and Matt did great there. I won it overall. And where'd you finish, Matt? You were
third and open.
Third and open. Yeah, so we went and did great.
It's like, I won it. Where'd you finish, Matt?
Yeah. Well, what Kyle's not telling you is Kyle had iron sights.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Won it with irons. Nice.
With a rocket lock.
Yeah. So that match, like Kyle said, is very much a challenging, aggressive, a totally different match than all of the others that. I mean, I haven't shot the one in Vegas. But the other matches that I shot this year, AK events, they're not even close to the level of difficulty. So, yeah, it's a super fun match. Like Kyle said, it was my home range. So to give you an idea of how difficult when we first got that, so there's a moving target, like Kyle said, that we shot. I think last year we shot a Kyle at Mystery Mountain at a 3-gun match, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was 300 yards there.
Yeah, so I was there helping set up that match last year, the 3-gun match that is. And when we started talking about building that, and you know, I told them I'd help them, and that target came in. It's a whole apparatus, and it literally rotates 360 degrees. Initially, we were going to have no-shoot steel plates, so that if you missed the target and you shot the no-shoot, it would flash a different color and indicate every time it would flash, you would incur, you know, penalties, which, you know, luckily we ran it in a local club match prior.
It was hard enough, bro.
I know it. And I told them, I said, people
That's
are gonna
evil.
this is gonna eat people's lunch already. So
Yeah.
you add that element. So luckily they didn't include that at our match, at the AK match we went to there. But super fun, and I think Kyle nailed it with the level of difficulty. Different group of people. And challenging, you know, speed it up, slow it down, shoot at 5 yards, shoot at 300 yards, and everything in between. So definitely the tri-gun of AK events.
So that I from a manufacturer standpoint, and you know, I support them all. That, like, they nailed it on the barrelhead. It is a shooter's match. It's going to test you. It's going to frustrate you. And they're going to stretch the distance. They stretch the distance further than any other AK match out there, and they can care less what caliber you're shooting. Know your holds and pull the trigger. That's their deal. And if you don't like it, don't shoot their match. They got plenty of people that shoot it. That's not to scare people away. It's just that they're there to test your abilities, and that's what they're going to do. And people love it. It's a great time. They run a great match, like Kyle said, and I don't know that you could ask for much better than that. So I think the next match would be Ken's up in Maine, and that one's more defensive tactic oriented with a competitive aspect on the back end of it. So Ken?
Yeah, man, that's a good way of looking at it. We bring people of all different skill abilities together, and our intention on the first day, it's usually a 2-day exercise. And the first day, we're actually building competence and confidence. We're looking to provide a good level of basic instruction that's not basic in nature, but it's fundamentals times 10. It literally covers what somebody might expect from a elementary walking in, first touching an AK, to having advanced level skills. And we give them certain positional opportunities. We walk through pieces like you mentioned, Jeremy. We talk about actually shooting the gun off center. We're using angles. We're talking about working the sights and working our holdovers, understanding the intricacies of working in and out of confined spaces. One of the things that we always include is vehicular work. So there's a bit of vehicular dynamics in the study. Again, that's about working in and around confined spaces, and it also brings the elements of the reality of defensive shooting. Most of us spend a good portion of our life around vehicles. So if you don't know how to shoot in and around those spaces, it's something to learn and something to experience. So for some people, it's their first opportunity to do that, and others, it's expanding upon it for them. We throw other things into the mix. This year we added a grenade throw.
Cool.
We set up 4 targets down range, and we put up barriers so grenades would bounce off the barriers. We had a hit zone. We had calculated partial hit zones, so there would be partial points versus full points, and we had throwbacks. Everybody see in the movies, the grenade lands in front of the dude, he chucks it back at you. Well, we had that too. So that was a big hit. A lot of people loved that, and the 2 winners actually got to throw Soviet-style airsoft grenades. So they're basically a flashbang.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
Everybody enjoyed it. Unfortunately, those grenades are no longer available. They were a Russian import, but hopefully somebody else
should have bought them all.
yeah. They're pretty awesome. But people love that type of stuff. But we too focus on accuracy and accountability. We had a deer shoot. So one of our first portions of our competition is you had to come out of a vehicle and come up on the side of the door, and with smoke in front of you. We use smoke as atmosphere for multiple reasons. One of them is to teach people for rescue skills, to understand how to survive in a burning atmosphere, and also to understand levels. You start to understand sometimes you have to be high, sometimes you have to be medium, sometimes you have to be low. And in this case, they had to shoot low in order to get under the atmosphere and see the target. And we put Christmas trees out in order to create a little forest for our deer targets. And you had to find the right angle to shoot between. So it's a thinking person's opportunity to get out there. So even you guys that shoot these 3 guns all the time, I think you'd have a blast getting out there with these guys and gals.
Sounds like you're adding a lot of different elements.
Laughing at each other.
Yeah, a lot of different elements that maybe these other ones aren't adding, with the smoke and the cars and all that. That sounds pretty cool.
Yep, it is a little bit different. We incorporate competition into both days. The first day is more instructional based, more training based, and the second day is got a little bit of additional features added to it, positional work that's going to work in around those vehicles, and then a lot more competition. And it is a blast. And as everybody mentioned before, people are sharing equipment regularly. A $3,000 rifle next to a $900 rifle, or even one that's been tricked out with full night vision capabilities. People will literally share them about, and it happens on a regular basis. Nice. Other things that we add that do a little bit different is we sponsor a dinner, get everybody together, and our event is more of a boutique style event. It is designed for people to get together and get to know each other and spend time with one another competing as well as learning. And We went out to dinner on a Saturday night. We always plan that. And we had about 95% of our folks that were attending, either at a sponsorship or shooting the event, attend the dinner that night. And to follow that up at 10 o'clock, it was pitch black. We had another partner, Nocturne Industries. They came out with their NVG equipment, and we went through the basics of NVG. Everybody got a chance to really get a feel for what it was, try it on, see the differences between the different types of tubes, what it's like running, a singular optic versus dual tubes versus quads, or even stepping it up and putting thermal filters on, and what that does. So no matter what the interest is, something's out there for them. We come back the next day, and we have a costume contest. So I enjoy the fact that somebody shot it in their tracksuit, because we actually have our competitors shoot in their costumes. The costume isn't valid unless they've shot the competition that follows that in their costume. That sets apart the winners.
Is there like a themed costume, or can they show up like Batman or whatever?
No, it's got to be Kalash from around the world.
Okay.
The only caveat we put to that is I am not a supporter of ski masks. I know that's a big thing on Earth here, but we shoot at people with ski masks, so we prefer they don't have that, and we also prefer that the costume be non-terrorist in basis. Again, we shoot at those people, so we would rather they not be our people. I think Jeremy knows what I'm talking about with that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So just a little bit different. And the other thing, while I'm pointing out stuff that's a little bit different, the Kalash community, when it comes to 2 and 3 guns, tends to run a little bit more, I'll say, open than we do in defensive type and defensive level shooting. We actually run a selector regularly. So if you run a selector on an AR or on a SCAR or on a Bren or whatever it is that you're shooting, we expect you to run a selector in the same fashion. So if you are not having eyes on target, that selector is unsafe. If you are moving, that selector is unsafe. Any sort of shift that you are not prepared to actually be on target and ready to shoot, that selector is unsafe. And it's a little bit different than some of the rules in other places, but it forces, again, a level of competence that is also on the legal side of things. So we're always talking about what are the implications of every round that you put down range, and we put an accountability to that. So we score every target. We use pie plates a lot. They're very easy to put up, very easy to take down, and they're very easy to score. And it's just one of those other aspects. But again, a lot of folks coming out. We really enjoy having them. The community is everything. It's super heartwarming. I was really, really thrilled this year. We had over 30 sponsors support us and over $6,000 in prizes.
Sweet.
And it was great. We had one supporter, which was Atlantic Firearms out of Maryland. Those guys made one of my dreams a reality. I wanted to do a surplus pickup. So we did a true battlefield pickup and had a event that actually ran for about an hour and 15 minutes with 4 teams, 7 on each team. And they had to pick up a surplus piece of equipment each way out, carry it through. And each time they would go up and pick up a bayonet and stab a target in order to take the rifle from that target, and then they'd engage. And they were trading rifles at that point, and those rifles were taking on a lot of sand. The range that we use is kind of like Florida sand. If any of you guys have been shut down in Florida, that sort of sand stays in your shorts for the next month, and you pull out stuff from your bag a year later, it's still got Florida sand in it.
Crabs up in there, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're dealing with. So we have the capability of knocking any gun down. Just because of the environment and atmosphere. But those folks were picking up the stuff. They were running with a simulated rifle that was on a sling. They had to hook it back up. They had to carry magazines in a surplus mag carrier, pick up a mag, pick up other portions. And like I said, they went for an hour and 15 minutes in this thing.
You put in the work, son. Damn.
Hell yeah. And it was 85 degrees with 100% humidity.
Shit.
It was work. It was like being in Texas in September, but it was New Hampshire.
It's your New Hampshire.
But anyway, little bit different.
Get good seafood there. Yeah.
Yeah, man. But we invite everybody to come out and join us next year. Again, it's a boutique style event. We keep it small so people actually having a chance to shoot with one another, understand, and get to meet one another. But please come out and join us.
So on some of these costumes, no matter which competition it is, I suggest that they do like movie themed or costumes.
We had Rambo.
That the AK was featured in. So like Rambo, Red Dawn.
Yes.
You know, something along those lines. It'd be,
absolutely.
they could wear the attire from the movie. That would be kind of cool. I'd like to see that. So I think that wraps up. Is that all the competitions?
So you've got nobody shot Thunder on the Tundra. Just a conflict of timing.
Sure.
Talking to those boys for next year. So I can't speak to that as a match as a whole. And then Red October, the granddaddy.
Oh yeah.
That started it all. It originally started in St. George, Utah. Brian Nelson and his family, Ken Nelson, they own Practice Floor, but they're also heavily involved at the time with SUP, Southern Utah Practical Shooters, and TPC. When the Southern Utah Practical Shooters range, the state owned it and forced them to shift it. They had to move it to Las Vegas. Rifle Dynamics has been the title sponsor for a number of years for that match. So it made sense to move it to Rifle Dynamics, regardless of what people think of Pro Gun Club. And I'm one of those haters, and I will gladly say it again. Move the range again, because Pro Gun Club is not fun to shoot at.
Concur.
But
so we've actually had Brian on the show. We had him on. I don't think it was this. It might have been last season. It might have been this season. But we did have Brian on, and he did talk about Red October. So
that match, what Brian does is he's going to put you in props. He's going to make you do stuff that you probably never thought you were going to do. Crawling under Cooper tunnels that are, just big enough for grown men to crawl under, but the slat board on top is not nailed in. It's spray painted on. And if you happen to move it by the body or your gear, it's penalties. You have to shoot underneath them. You've got to come out from underneath them and shoot steel, then go back in. In Utah, they have a actually wooden tank that they make you crawl into and shoot out of. Cool. I watched a couple of dudes split their noggin on that a couple times because they just didn't get low enough. There's shaky bridges, things of that nature, where you're on a suspended bridge shooting. But also, Brian's going to put you in positions where you're shooting real fast and you're going to have to slow down. And the way he's going to slow you down is going to make you, he's going to cut out almost like an Iron Man type circle in the middle of a target and put a clay bird there. And he's going to make you drop the mag on the ground and shoot one round at it. Now, if you miss it, you could always reload, but you're going to have to drop the mag again. He's going to make you slow down. And most of the time, that's when you're coming off of an unsupported position, or you're about to pick up something heavy and run with it. With this year, like I said, we had the Cooper tunnels, we had the shaky bridges, we had a lot of those, no shoot type things, but we also had to carry Lieutenant Dan back, and he was 115 pounds of steel. But he's also going to push a little distance, 100. This year I think he pushed out to just under 100, but sometimes he will push it to 2. And a decent round count, 250 to 300 rounds is typically what he puts on. I believe Brian, I apologize, Brian has passed the reins off, maybe not 100%, but most of the percentage points off to a gentleman out of California. Kyle will know who he is. But the goal is to continue that match, and there's a group of us petitioning to move it either back to St. George or move it to Rio Salado or move it to ETTS there in Dallas-Fort Worth area. Just because Pro Gun Club it's the old PMC factory, and the ground is so uneven, and there's like boulders that are willing to come out underneath your feet, and you're crawling and crawling. It's a cool facility, but it's also Vegas. So let's just put it for what it is.
Well, and one cool thing, like Jeremy has mentioned, is that match specifically is like, so this year they took a mini clay bird, and they popped out the center of it, and you had to hold it in one hand and then load your AK, rack it, and then shoot, 20 targets, Jeremy, maybe 15 targets, and different ports, leaning, stuff like that. And then last year, that same stage was a bottle of vodka that I'm pretty sure the ROs had drank the vodka and there was just water left. And you had to put your thumb over it pretty much, and you ran the entire stage with that bottle of vodka, and if it dropped more than like I'd say more than 3 or 4 fingernails, you had a 60-second penalty tacked onto you. And this year, the clay bird, if you cracked that, I think it was a 30-second penalty. But it's stuff where
that's cool.
You wouldn't normally do that.
Yeah, so like what Ken was saying, he rewards for accuracy. Brian's the same way. You hit a no shoot with Brian, it's 30 seconds. So it pays to be accurate, but he's also gonna, like this year he printed 3 very close configurations of camouflage of different errors, but they were different colors as well. And depending on the stage, and you had to read the stage, you shot, desert tan tiger stripes on this one, but the no shoot was the green tiger stripe. But literally 2 stages later, it was switched, and if you didn't pay attention, you were tagging no shoots, and every target's 30 seconds if you were tagging them. 30 seconds a round in target. So if you're putting 2 rounds on paper to neutralize it, you just got 60 seconds in penalties per target. So it pays to pay attention, and it pays to think on the move and understand what you're doing while you're on the move.
Yeah, I like that.
But those are your key matches, and those are your big ones.
Does anybody have anything else to add to that one? Now, I also saw that they're going to have Kalashmas.
So that's in Texas.
That's the Kalash.
There's not much of it's not much of a competition. It's more of a gathering.
Is that what it is?
I support it. It's Clay and Tony there again in Texas. They put on KB. Yeah. I don't believe there's a competition there. Ken, you can tell me who he was, but they did last year or 2 years ago, not 2020, but 2019. They had that former Spetsnaz guy come over from Russia.
Sonny Pazikas?
Dmitry. I don't remember who it was. What's that?
Yeah, Eva from Center T had been there in the summertime.
Okay, so he came down and shot and whatnot with them. So that brought a lot of attention because you had actually a guy that was in the military there in Russia come over and do classes
cool.
at the events, which brought a lot of attention.
Yeah, very nice. So let's do this now, and because I know there's going to be several questions, so we can knock out several of our listener questions. Let's just kind of go through each of you, talk about your setups that you have, your kit, your gear that you run in the competitions, and then we'll take the listener questions.
James, go with yours.
All right, so I run a Galil, which I happen to have right here. So we got a recoil eliminator on there, RS regulate rail, Vortex optic, Magpul stock, ALG trigger, KNS piston. It's a really great setup. I had Dissident, as mentioned before, work it over. IWI already takes an AK platform that we all know and love and just refines it, makes it better. So you get a lot of the better options. The the dust cover on the top that's optics ready, so I can mount the UH1 without having to buy an Ultimac like I did in my previous AK. It's a really fun setup. I like it. Even in the 7.62, the man's caliber, with the KNS piston, the pistol or the KNS plastic delete that allows me to run an AR grip. It's really easy. The recoil control is not a problem, especially with the RS regulate rail. It allows me to drive the gun like I like. It makes it really easy. It's not as, again, I'm coming from a 3-gun background shooting a raced out AR, which 223 is not anything to worry about for recoil. The 7.62's got a little bit more, but I mean, it's nothing to worry about. And just, knowing the thing that I would say for a new shooter to be, the thing that I've learned to transition is the reloads, which is just dry fire. It's just time and effort. And then the bore offset. That is a little bit more different. So on talking about the difference from where the optic is and to where the bullet is, it's a little bit more exaggerated. It's about an inch higher than it is on my AR. So that was something I had to think about on the clock and just be more conscious of as I was learning. So again, when you're getting spun up for these matches and practicing, get out to the range, put your gun on paper, shoot a gun up or target up close, and then that'll really help you out. So, it's been a rock solid setup. I've been very happy with it. It's similar to a lot of what these guys are running here. So we'll sound like a little bit of a broken record, but when it comes to competition, we run stuff that works, and frankly, the Galil just plain works.
Adam, hammer down.
All right, so I run something similar to what James was mentioning. So this is a Gen 2 Galil, though, and it's kind of blurry there because of the background. But the Gen 2 Galil, the great thing about this is there's a free float forend on this, so you don't have to worry so much about if you're really cranking down on barricades and things like that. The other thing I noticed is that the Gen 2 Galil with this free float handguard doesn't get anywhere near as hot as the Gen 1s did. So that makes a difference too when you're doing 40, 50 round stages. Muzzle brake is a Strike Industries King Comp on that. And then I run a Holosun Ames optics. I'm running these for, I don't know, 6-7 months now. This came out in October. And then our Holosun 509 on Arisaka mount. And then just our stock stock on this, and the ALG trigger, which I got from Dissonant Arms. And at the AK matches, one of the reasons I run 2 optics is that the AK matches, you tend to see 200-yard targets and then like point-blank targets, and then a 100-yard target and then a point-blank target. And so instead of remembering the offset every single time, if there's a bunch of targets close, I just run my offset, which is generally 0 to 15 yards ish. And then at the 200 and stuff like that, I'm running the main optic. And this is pretty much the exact same setup I also had back when I was running the Gen 1, just with a Midwest rail or an RS rail, kind of like James had mentioned. 7.62 man's caliber, as James mentioned. And the other nice thing is the Gen 2 Galil, which is the one everybody, if they're looking to get one, is going to have, is that these will take any mag because the polymer has been removed on the Gen 2s. Makes a huge difference if you're with certain mags you're running. And as already mentioned, the other big thing with the Galils is that the safety throw lever is a huge thing. So with these Galils, there's a throw lever on this side or your typical, more AK style one. And that makes a huge difference when you're trying to target, as fast as possible. So that's, and this is a 16-inch rifle, I believe, same as James. We're running the full 16-inch rifle length barrels, which I kind of love that. I'm looking kind of what Ken does. I started doing defensive stuff, and I still love. I like my full-size rifles.
The shorty is nice, but I mean, the manipulation of this is not that long, and the capability that you get in the ballistics with the 16-inch barrel is just where it's at.
Yep. And what people don't, I guess they definitely don't know, but they definitely appreciate long term. I guess is, with the 2 rifles there, you have a Gen 1 and a Gen 2. And like Adam spoke to, a lot of the enhancements that came from the Gen 1 to the Gen 2 came from the direct user feedback, but particularly within the free float system, that came from a alphabet agency down there where James is from, where they're in heavy sand and desert environments and wanted a Galil or an AK variant, but specifically running M4 mags in the 5.56. However, what we learned in our demo sessions is that they came out of a car and hard barricade on the hood. They were shifting point of aim, point of impact, because they're used to running an M4. So we set out to fix that problem and get those boys a better particular piece. And ended up what happening is we enlarged the front of the receiver, so now that rail interfaces with the receiver and bolts the receiver itself. So that's where that came from. And then, shorter safety throw, still running the same trigger, but everything else is the same. 30-32 CRV barrel and cold hammer forged and full milled. The receiver starts with a 21-pound block of steel and goes from there. So, Kyle, you're on a Gen 2, 7.62, right?
Yes, sir. I'm running a Gen 2. You guys already said most everything that needs to be said. Mine's a little unique because I was running iron sights, shooting iron sight divisions, and gamers, as Matt was saying, that I like tinkering a lot. I really wasn't happy with any iron sights on the market, so I machined my own. Front sight that actually clamps onto the barrel to get the most sight radius, and then I modified a adjustable rear sight, so it basically has like a 50-yard zero and a 300-yard zero, so I could flick a lever and just swap my zeros mainly for that Arizona match, because I knew it was going to be all within 300 yards. I machined my own. I also have a fiber optic to make the front sight glow, which I found to be super helpful. You can shoot it like a dot. Anybody who shoots USPSA in any iron sight division, you don't have to align your sights perfectly for 90% of the targets you're shooting. You just need to have it somewhere in the notch, and even more so the rifle. And then I'd say what makes mine really unique is I was running a prototype muzzle brake that I've been working on for about 2 years, called Unrivaled, and our brand's called Unrivaled, and totally random, but we actually just dropped the 7.62 by 3.9 brake today. Dropped our website, which is Unrivaled Pro Shop, and it's like a tunable brake, so it's really efficient baffles as far as pushback, and then it has like tuning holes, so you can actually add and remove set screws or ported set screws and tune it to the individual shooter, which, in my opinion, talking about people getting into competition shooting and realizing what they need to change about their guns, I found that like having a tunable muzzle brake is in a lot of ways more important than having one that's effective as far as pushback. Having both is great, but you can do a lot with quite a bit of recoil if your brake is pushing the gun for a right-handed shooter to the left the right amount and down the right amount. So I think I came up with a really good system myself and Zach Smith that you mentioned earlier, and I use that thing every match in October, and I've been using them for about 2 years. But I mean, the Galil was freaking awesome. Gen 2 with the free float barrel, no worries using barricades. It's a really big deal to me. And accuracy wise, whatever steel it is that the barrels are made out of, Jeremy was explaining to me. What is it, Jeremy?
3032 CRV.
3032 CRV. It's extremely hard, and it's an accurate barrel as far as like any AK. I own a lot of AKs, and I'm shooting factory Russian ammo, and with just about any ammo I ran through it, I'm shooting groups at 100 yards that are just maybe 2 inches, and that's with iron sights. So in my opinion, the gun is 1.5 MOA, 2 MOA gun, and very consistently with all different kinds of Russian ammo, which is kind of amazing because you can get really well made Russian AKs or Polish AKs, and that's just not a thing. They're usually 2 to 3 MOA. Like 2 is really amazing, like really well made Russian AK.
Cool. Who's next?
Matt.
Yep. So I shoot a Gen 1 gun in 5.56, the gamer caliber, I guess, and it is a Dissident Arms. It's either said R Ace or a Race. So Dissident Arms takes a Galil. They put it's an R. I think it changes depending on where they're at, but my gun has an Armalite tunable brake on it. It has a Dissident Arms adaptive stock on it. They put an RS Regulate handguard on it, and so it looks a lot like a Gen 2 minus the free float system there. Super flat shooting gun, really easy. I've shot the best groups with it at 200 yards with 77s that I've ever shot with any gun ever, including like bolt guns and any other guns. And I don't have a whole lot of experience with bolt guns, but I have a lot of experience shooting at distance. So that was pretty interesting going into the season, knowing that if I needed to shoot accurately, I can. I would have brought it with me, but all I brought was my carry gun. I'm at my mom's house in New Orleans visiting her for a few days with my wife. So my gun, I run a Vortex Huey or UH1 primary optic. I zero it at 50 yards. So like most 5.56 ammo, it returns at about 200 yards. So if you look at where your zero is, it's going to keep on going past 50 yards, and it's going to return back to zero around 200 yards. I run a Vortex Razor 6-minute offset dot, so that's zeroed at 15 yards. So anything between, I would say, 5 yards to 40 yards, I use my offset red dot. So that kind of becomes my primary optic in a lot of ways for a lot of these types of matches. Anything at distance, I use my my top dot. Super fun shooting gun with the K&S piston. I can play with loads. I do not shoot Russian ammo. I shoot ammo that's American made in Pennsylvania that I made myself, and super fun, super reliable. I mean, when I first got this gun, I'd ask Jeremy. I'm used to 3-gun and things get dirty, and you got to oil them, and different guns require different treatment. And I'd ask Jeremy, what do I do with this thing? Like, how do I clean it? I'm not an AK guy. The only other AK variant that I have is one that I won from a match earlier this year. So,
bad answer.
Jeremy.
Next. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, AK Mario built that rifle for you, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah. Yep, he did.
Up there at Lee Armory.
Yep. Yeah, it's a super, super nice gun that I pulled off a prize table at a big 3-gun match this year. I was super blessed to bring that thing home, and it's a 7.62 gun. So it sits in the safe. So with that gun, it's been super easy. I don't know where I was going with the AK statement, but with Jeremy telling me how to clean it, he said, "Just keep shooting it, bud." So that's what I've done, and it's been easy.
Or we'll send you some Seal 1, and that'll take care of it.
Yeah. If there was something to take care of, I'm sure that's the product for it. But it pretty much, I wiped it down a little bit. It pretty much looks like it did.
Well, that's what they're known for, running
ago.
dirty. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Next, who has it going? Ken?
Jeremy? I just run I run a mixture of everything. Just kind of depends on where we're at in it all. Typically I run the 5.56, but I have a 7.62. I've got a 5.45. I've got a 3.08 that I've run in competition. But they're all pretty much the same way set up. If it's a Gen 1, it's running RS or Midwest Industries handguard. They all have ALG triggers in them, KNS. The boys, Tyson, Daniel Fisher, and Gordon are phenomenal human beings and support the community. So I try to bolt stuff onto my rifles that are that serve a purpose, but also from companies that are passionate about the community. And they're at every event as well. And unfortunately, like, what people don't fully understand is that before the Gen 2 or Gen 3, I guess you could say, KNS piston was available, everybody was shooting it. They just didn't know it because we had them in the machine guns at every event getting torture tested and then sent back for those boys to fully understand, because I was like, guys, like, I'm going to put 15K through these guns in a month and they won't be clean. So send me pistons and we'll get them taken care of. And as soon as they got them back, I gave them the report back and whatnot. They turned them on the next day on the website. People were buying them because, they ran like they were supposed to and nothing broke, and we heated them up. Trust me, we heated them up. But I run that stuff and, try to support in various different disciplines and different calibers and things of that nature. But, I have no issues running from a D60 to a Romanian surplus 70-round drum. It doesn't make a difference to me. If it's reliable, I'm going to run it. My job is to be there to support the community and support the company first and foremost, and then the ones that help us. So 9 times out of 10, I've got a Vortex primary or a Hollow Sun primary with the other one as a backup or a secondary. So if it's a Vortex primary, it's a Hollow Sun secondary. If it's a Hollow Sun primary, it's a Vortex secondary. And muzzle brakes, been working with Kyle with his stuff and playing with it. Like I said, I like to support shooters and their endeavors, and if they're willing to push the bar and see if they can't make something better, well, as long as you're open to the criticism, well, I guess even if you're not open to it, I'm going to tell you. That's kind of my job, and supporting Ken on his efforts. I can care less what I'm shooting, as long, as I heard Tucker Schmidt and Ruben Atkinson on a Vortex podcast the other day. At the end of the day, it's a sight picture and a trigger press. If it's going to do those two, I'm probably going to shoot it. And that was the most simplistic way I have ever heard it in the 36 years of me being on this earth. Is it doesn't matter what it is. It's a sight picture and a trigger press.
Very well put.
I get it.
I like that.
Very true.
Yeah. Who hasn't gone yet?
I'll jump in there if the competition guys are done.
Ken runs a bone stock gun.
I freaking do.
He's got an ODS now.
I do. I run a 1775. I love that rifle. But I actually run a a gamut of different rifles and for different reasons. And I'll kind of start at the bareborn basics. You know, like Jeremy just mentioned, I do run the IWI Galil series as well as the Zion series, and both of them are excellent. As far as what I've added to them, I have some of Scott's equipment, some of the RS Regulate stuff on the Galils. But I do keep a certain amount of them bare stock. And the reason for this is I do a lot of crossover training, and specifically for the law enforcement community. I have different officers and agency members that come out and shoot with us on a pretty regular basis, and they are running M4s typically. So the whole idea is to give them an opportunity to shoot a different platform and start to experience what the advantages of shooting a Kalash-style gun. So when you get into the Galil, you can actually blend, as we all know, the M4 and the Kalash with the 5.56 version. Having that mag well, being able to accept any stagnant type mag, mil-spec mag, that's amazing for them because it works all the same features that they're accustomed to, but gives them the reliability and dependability of a Kalash platform in the Galil. So that's pretty cool, and we enjoy doing that with them. But I too, like a lot of these other fellows here, I typically shoot 7.62 39 guns or 7.62 51 guns. Barrier penetration is real. Being able to hunt with the gun is real. So 7.62 39, we can argue about it, but ballistically semi-equivalent to 30-30 Winchester. So it is a deer hunting cartridge, and we also know what it'll do on other walking things that may not have good intentions. It does very well on vehicles. It does very well on other barriers. Yeah. You know, one of the classes that we do typically every other year is a barrier penetration test. It's a full 2 days of that, and 7.62 39 by far is superior in almost all of those tests. So other guns that we run. So I'll put a shout out there to Mr. Jim Fuller. Jim helped me from the very beginning when I branched out of 6 Hour and started to get out on my own. And I went to one of his build classes that he was sponsoring, and he and I built a rifle together. And I run that gun still to today. And I keep that rifle fairly stock. It is a 4.5 pinned and welded rifle. I do prefer that length. I prefer folder guns, but that one happens to be a collapsible stock. But it has a hand-tuned G2 Tapco trigger in it. It does not have a KNS piston. It has a standard selector on it. And the reason I shoot this gun quite a bit on the onset of my training classes is to prove that it is about the technique, not about the gun. We go ahead when we snap to and we drive that gun from 10 meters cold, and we'll put rounds right in the A zone in 3/4 of a second is my average, but I shoot them as low as half a second accurately. And if you can do that with a Kalash, and then I do the same thing with an AR, and I'll pick up my Zion and I'll drive the gun in the same fashion. So to be able to do that side by side, we literally train our shooters to be able to cross train between the AR and the AK. I'm a firm believer in the learning that you can gain out of that. Just a quick aside. If you've been shooting an AR for months and months and months, years and years and years, you either get bored of it or you're going to reach a plateau at certain level. In order to break that plateau, I highly suggest jumping over to the AK platform, or if that's not your thing, jump on something different. But the AK is so completely different in the way that it's managed that your brain has to start to reset. You have to start thinking differently. The mode of operation, SOPs, are completely separate. So when you get the separation, your brain gets re-engaged, and if you stay on that system for a couple months and then go back to the AR, you will break your plateau. It'll take you another month or two to get reaccustomed to and get your speeds back up, get your efficiencies rebuilt, but you will break those plateaus pretty easily by cross-training. So we've done quite a bit of that. We've gotten a lot of shooters that were AR shooters now interested in the AK platform, and either they're driving Galils or they're driving a custom-made AK that is done by CW Gunworks, done by M13, done by Krebs Custom. There's so many good builders out there, but those are the ones that we typically have been working with and enjoy all of them. But we bring Galils out to every training. We bring out CW Gunworks builds. We bring out the floor built hand built AKs. As well as some basic stock stuff, whether it be some of the Polish builds or some of the old Chinese builds. They're all out there for people to try and look at the differences. But my guns, again, tend to be more defensive in basis. I run some Scott's equipment, RS regulates for mounts, usually running red dot optics. Aim points are what I've typically been using, but I'm probably going to start to get some Hollow Suns into the mix. Again, standard triggers, we run Topcos that have been hand-tuned, or FOM triggers, again, hand-tuned, and we do run some ALGs as well. You know, the KNSs, we've got one of those in the Galils, got one of them in one of the AKs, and we run them side by side. And I'm a folder guy. I've recently got the 1775 from Occam Defense, and that is a fantastic system all the way around. Really impressed with that rifle. And I had mine built as a folder. But yeah, out there running with the best of them. I very much enjoy shooting stock guns. When I go out and shoot trap and skeet, which I do occasionally, I'll compete with those gentlemen. I will bring a side-by-side 20-inch Stoger and actually compete with that. And nice. Or my 870 Police Magnum. So I've never been one to use the high-end competition gear. I use what I use to defend myself.
Very cool. All right, let's do some questions now, listener questions. So each of you go to Talking Lead's Instagram, go to our Facebook, and I want you to pick a question and that you want to field, that you want to answer. And I'm going to kick us off here. And this is Moliner's site. What are some of the differences to consider when building an AK for competition versus building one as a defensive combat weapon? Does anybody have an opinion on that, Ken?
I don't think there's any real big differences, Ken. I mean, I think knowing your gear and trusting your gear are relevant to what it's designed for. At the end of the day, a bullet's coming out of the end of the damn thing. But if you don't know how to apply, the fundamentals and know where that bullet's going, it's irrelevant what it was built for at that point, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm with you.
As Clint Smith would say, I would rather not be efficient with one gun, but with all the guns, because typically one gun leads to many more guns if you're in actual firefights. So knowing enough about everything is better than knowing, the all about one thing. But, I'm sure there are things that, big muzzle brakes, tank brakes, things in that nature aren't ideal for defensive purposes.
Like James's.
But could they use it? Absolutely.
I mean, that could be a weapon in and of itself right there. If you're out of ammo, you just beat the hell out of somebody with it.
Yeah, so you get the combination flash hider and flashbang and
Thor's hammer.
Ballistic delivery device.
It's like Thor's hammer on the end of that thing. I love it.
It's like Mike Tyson's fist on the end of that thing.
So I don't think there's much difference, but you probably can add a lot more to that than I can.
Yeah, I agree. I see a lot of brakes come out there, and the only real downfall of a brake is using it improperly in a defensive situation. But with the advent of flash shields and or suppressors, for goodness sakes, it takes care of that problem right away. So you can run a good comp in competition, and then for defense purposes, throw a flash shield on there and or a suppressor. Problem solved. It's easy as that. But the only thing to be aware of is, particularly if you're competing in and around others, if it's teams, is those comps can be quite dangerous if they're in close proximity to either architecture and or another person, just because of the amount of side blasts that's coming off of them. That pressure wave is real.
Yeah. All right, who's got a question that they want to field? Adam?
So I got one here. One here from T. Williams, 1924, and he says, or she says, will the adjustable gas block work to lower recoil for the competition as well as helping with the can? So this is something that hits home for that I would say, Jeremy, probably the better half of 2.5 hours we've spent this week arguing and bitching about this, and how Kyle and I know what we need to do with Zions to make them great, and everybody else isn't on the same page, and we're going to have a meeting on Wednesday discussing that, hypothetically, of course. So I whether it's a gas block or an adjustable gas piston, I think they very much serve a very, very great purpose in reducing the amount of gas coming back on your gun. So whether it's an M4 or an AR-15 or an AK, those guns are typically overgassed. So if you're feeding it factory ammunition that's been designed for that gun, 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 times out of 10, there's more gas there than you need. So if you can reduce the amount of gas coming back, you're going to reduce the amount of things that are moving and how fast they're coming back and how fast they're slamming forward, which translates to movement as you're seeing your sights. So I will say this: it's an awesome product, whether it's a gas block in an M4 or a gas piston in an AK or a Galil. But as some of us found at Kalash Bash, I won't name any names, Adam Litke, you got to be really careful with how you run it. If you're running it on the ragged edge, as far as reliability, then soon, I mean, especially like I've had this conversation with Jerry recently too, where when I first tuned my first adjustable gas block on an M4, I did it in Arizona where I lived, where it was 85 degrees. My gun was super clean. It was very well lubed. A few weeks later, I was in Vegas. It was in the 50s and 60s, and I shot it for a full day. And my day 2, my gun just didn't operate anymore. It didn't work at all because I tuned it for best case scenario. So giving it enough gas where it both tames recoil and maintains its reliability is super important. And if you're toggling in between, let's say a can and just an open muzzle brake or a bird cage or whatever muzzle device you're using, that's also a whole nother area where you can tame it. So I think it serves a very good purpose, but I would definitely say you gotta practice with it, and you gotta find out where that stoppage is and where the failure points are, and adjust accordingly. So give it what the gas that you need for it to lock back on an open mag is typically what we do with AR-15s, and then give it just a little bit more gas after that, just to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room there. So hopefully that answers that.
And they can do that with the AKs now with, I think KCI and a couple others are making followers that'll lock the bolt to the rear on an empty mag. So if you can lock it to the rear, give it a little bit more gas and call it quits.
I do believe Brian has developed an adjustable gas block for his as well.
Yeah. Connor Norris on Facebook says, what are some of the common mistakes first-time competitors shooters make at matches? What are the most important things to train, especially on the AK, before going to competition? Honestly, I would say the most common mistake that first-time competitors make is they don't ask questions.
Yeah.
They sit back and they're super nervous, and eventually they'll open up. But a lot of questions that of your first time can be addressed very quickly. And if you just raise your hand and say, "It's my first match," you will be pushed to the end of the line. You can watch as long as you need to. You're gonna have somebody grab you and say, like, "Hey man, like, let's walk, let's have a conversation, let's talk through this," because at the end of the day, we want you to be safe. We want you to have a good time. But then there's things that, people often forget about, and that's, nutrition and hygiene, because as you start taxing the mental cognition on the range in the heats of parts of the country, you forget to drink water, you forget to get sugar in the body with fruits and actual nutrition. So that shuts people down. And then understanding that the match can only go as fast as you and your shooter, your friends, will allow it to be. So resetting targets, pasting targets, help scoring, moving the match along, we'll continue to do that. As far as training, I think Kitzmiller hit on that. Understand your point of aim, point of impacts at various ranges, understanding your zeros, understanding your weapon system. Learn how to mag change, but learn how to shoot targets on the move. It's a timed event. At the end of the day, you're racing a clock. So, yeah, you can stand flat-footed and shoot all you want, and then run to the next one. Shane Cooley is a freaking master of this in USPSA. The dude sprints to one corner, shoots a bunch of targets, shoots to another corner. JJ Ricazza, same way. But then there's people like Max Michel and other people and Nils, and they're not running a lot, but their feet are always moving to the end objective. So, get out and work on that and work on training. and just have a good time with it. And like I said, the things that I see the biggest mistakes from even seasoned shooters, nutrition. You've got to keep nutrition in the body to keep the brain working is what it boils down to. Yeah. Water, Gatorade, and, electrolytes, things of that nature. Matt and I, with Josh Freilich, when we RO'd on Friday at KB, we were, at the end of the day, we were 26 miles into ROing, and we were smoked. I mean, we drank all the water.
All the water. All day.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. I like that. Anybody else want to add to that?
I'm gonna tag on what Jeremy said. So one of the big things, particularly newer shooters and folks that are new into the AK specifically, don't go out and buy a whole lot of stuff. Go out to that event, whether it be a training event, whether it be a competition, and ask questions. Touch, lick, and feel what's out there, and get an idea of what other folks are running and why. And they're only too happy to tell you what works and what doesn't work. It'll save you a lot of effort, a lot of money, and you'll be able to try a whole bunch of different things and really start to dial in on what's going to work for you. And as we know, particularly in the Kalash community, you can go ahead and start with a very basic, bare bones rifle and just start adding equipment to it and deleting equipment from it. And people will give you stuff. They've got perfectly serviceable equipment that is excellent for that use, that they're like, hey, I'm done with this. Here, try it, have it. I've seen that happen on more occasions. I do it all the time myself. I've got a whole bin of stuff that I've rolled out of, that other people have rolled out of, and I keep it in order to pass on to others. And the other big thing is just don't overthink it. Come out there and enjoy yourself.
Well, I think also, too, Ken, the caveat to that, people then start understanding that, ounces equal pounds and pounds equal pain. And there's a reason why the surefires and things in that nature are so much lighter than everything else, because, when you're standing flat-footed on the range doing ready-ups for a little bit, doesn't matter a whole lot. But when you're humping that rifle around all day, we see it at every event we go to. A guy or a girl shows up with their I grew up on an island, so their rifle is equivalent to boat anchors that I'm used to. And by middle of the day, half the shit is off that rifle.
It's true.
And they don't understand. They're like, I had no idea. Or, the light's in the wrong spot, but then they go to try to go through a port and they're like, that's not going to work. Yeah. And they've never done it. So they start ripping gear off. And hell, if you're in a mood to buy some gear, come to an event. There'll be plenty of people selling it because they just realized this was a bad mistake real quick.
Get a good deal, fire sale. Yeah.
It's funny watching $3,000 worth of MVG equipment come off the front end of the rifle because they try to do texture.
I'm gonna do this next one on IG here. This is Wolverine 30 cal.
It was mine.
Okay, you're gonna do that one? Because
I was gonna do it. Yeah.
Do the whole.
That was mine too. Damn it.
All right, whoever said it first gets to do it. So go ahead.
You're good. You're good.
So I had the Wolverine 30 cal. Was which division would you choose for a match if you had an AK or of each type, and do you prefer jungle run stages over a standard stage in a bay? So when it comes to the which type of AK you have, show up and shoot anything. I mean, I prefer the man's caliber, God's caliber, the God's chosen race, 7.62 by 39. We'll just keep picking on Matt's. You can't go wrong, but there's AK events. It is awesome to go out there with some rock and lock mags and run through stuff and do things like that. But if you've got a 7,
at the end of the at the end of the day, it's irrelevant to what caliber you shoot. If you're proficient with it and you've got the ammunition, show up and bang.
I don't know. Two of the winners here are 30 cals, so.
Yeah, I mean, you got 3 30 calibers going up against 2 5.56ers. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What ammunition you can get your hands on, show up and bang. If you want to show up with a friggin', there was a dude running a Mosin Nagant at friggin' at Rock, like a
guy running an SVD.
Good for them.
We had an SVD.
We had and then you'll get to see weapon systems that you'll probably never dream that you get to see it. Kitzmiller's buddies out from Arizona showed up with a PKM and an RPK.
Nice.
So and they're not like semi-auto versions of these They were legit belt-fed machine guns, rocking and rolling. And then, grab some ammo, train, get out there, caliber-wise, whatever you're proficient with, get out and bang. And then he also asked, should you camp? Hey, bud, it's a long day in the heat. It's only going to make for an even longer night in the heat. So, hey, we stayed out there pretty late, but you know what? That Marriott bed slept very well.
Oh, yeah, it did.
To speak to that question, I'd say it depends on what you're looking for in the match. If you're looking for performance, then obviously the being well rested and performing and being mentally proficient, that all lends itself to maybe you want to splurge and get a hotel. Or if you're there for the experience, you want to hang out and be the community and meet people. And mix with people. Yeah. The best way to do that is hanging out at campsites and wandering around. And the best way to do that is to be there and be part of that. So, depending on what you're trying to go for with the event and what you want to extract out of it, I think that'll help dictate some of your decision for that one.
I was so worried. I was so worried about Kalash Bash when I really saw the campsite, because I thought, you know what, Kyle is going to take his ass here and he's not going to leave. So Kyle Litzi is like a Kalash hippie from California, and I mean, I don't know how many matches that we've been to that you camped somewhere in the general proximity of where we were. But I saw that and I was like, oh, this is bad. This is real bad.
No, dude, it's got to be BLM land so I can shoot guns. So I can wake up in the morning and roast off some rounds and warm up. Then it's worth it. But no, Kalash Bash, no, I'm just going to end up drinking way too many beers and not performing. Like, I'd do the hotel thing there for sure.
He also says, Wolverine 30 Cal says, I love seeing all my people, Clay and Tony and Dissident Arms. We thank you for all the hours you invested to build the AK community. And then he makes another post. It says, I met you at Kalash Bash 2021. I don't know your name, Wolverine 30 Cal, so you have to PM me. Let me know who you are. It was the best thing of the year. I ran an IWI Galil Ace 7.62 with a Romanian 75-round drum. The JMac accessories made it even more comfortable to shoot.
Nice.
So very cool.
Very good.
Very cool.
And I was actually going to do the comment right below that. So
okay.
Which is interesting. He says, why hasn't anyone addressed weapon manipulation for AKs? Instead of relying on imported parts kits, why do we fundamentally change the way we reload and change the weapon by creating something more ergonomic? I say, let's teach these commie bastards what the American ingenuity can truly accomplish. And
it's
to that guy, I say, I also see a lot of comments saying, what's the disadvantages of using an AK in a competition and this and that. And honestly, it's accuracy, which I think IWI has done a great job with the free-floated barrels and higher quality barrels, and then obviously Rock and Lock. But what people don't realize is that Rock and Lock has a lot of advantages, especially in my opinion for like tactical reasons. There's no seating a mag and it falling out. Once it clicks, the mag is set. You don't have to tap it. I've been at matches where I do AR reloads. I think I seated it fine. Mag falls out. One time into a trash can on the stage, and I had to reach down in the trash can and pull it out. Never going to happen with an AK. And honestly, if you get the manipulations down, it's not that much slower. If you're grabbing your magazine, knocking out your empty or low mag with the mag in hand, and you have a well-made AK, because they really do go into the gun differently depending on how, in a standard sheet metal receiver, how the rails are filed, or the dimensions of the rails and the mouth opening of the sheet metal, or in the Galil's case, it's got a little bit of a plastic funnel, like a magwell almost, on the rear to help guide you in, and just enough play to get in with the machined receiver. So I think what this guy's saying right here is kind of, the Galil kind of is that gun. The Gen 2 Ace is that gun. Like, it's got a full rail that you can mount optics on, a free float barrel you can push on, the charging handles on the right side, unless you've got problems like James. And
by right you mean left.
Yeah. Oh yeah, on the right side. You know what I mean.
The correct side.
The correct side. I was going to say that, and then also the last thing I was going to say is a lot of people are asking about magazines, and in my experience, Magpul magazines, just buy Magpul mags. Like, if you're a collector, Bakelite are cool, Steel mags are cool. If you had a brand new Bakelite, it would probably be better than a Magpul mag, but the reality is the feed lips are fucked on a lot of them, and they're, in my experience, they've been within 1,000 rounds of failing. Magpul mags don't do that, and for mag pouches, just high-speed gear is fine. I think LAG Tactical is going to be making some good Kydex ones soon, too.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, Magpul makes a great mag. You know, they're constantly looking for improvements in there. X-Tac and US Palm, you know, we won't get into that drama, but they've made plenty of good mags as well. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, the metal mags are solid, but, you know, those plastic mags are equally as good in many cases and significantly cheaper. So if they break, you throw it in the trash and you grab another one.
Good point. All right, who's got the next question?
I'll take this one here. So from Sack Archer, not so obvious things to consider before attending your first AK match. So things I would think about is, like, some things we've talked about here is zeroing your gun. You know, getting a good zero and not having a shotgun pattern. You know, knowing that a zero is, you know, trying to be precise and getting a good dope on your gun. Testing it at distance. You know, you can do this with, you don't need to take a ton of ammo to do this. Take a box of ammo, just go to the range and do some research, you know, and just do due diligence to know at 5 yards, my gun, I aim here and the gun hits here. You know, at 50 yards, I aim here and the gun hits here. You know, do that at certain distances, learn the recoil impulse of the gun. Then the other thing is like we say, it's not all about the shooting. It's about the movement. So learning how to, this is free, you can do it at home, is dry fire, is learn how to move with the gun, bring the gun up and build your index is what I call it. So when you go to raise the gun up, you're not having to fish and find your sight. When you come into position, the gun's right there. That can all come is just free. It doesn't take any, it just takes time and effort. So things that you can do and be confident with that. And then it's learning the manipulation of the gun, where the safety is, how to load and unload the gun, so that when the time comes to do that stuff on the clock, it becomes intuitive and you can learn about where you're going to run, what targets you're going to engage, where you're going to aim, what do you think you're going to do about that. So the other thing to think about is, again, being things that, you know, a person want to think about is to ask questions. You know, like Jeremy said, raise your hand. I'm the new guy here. Have you guys done this before? I don't know shit about this, you know, just asking for help. And that can be scary to do. Yeah. You're all a bunch of type A's. You want to be the person who knows all about this, but just being humble enough to say, hey, you guys want to help me out? And the other thing is that it's going to inflate the other guy's ego because, oh shit, he's asking me for help. I must know something, you know, and it helps them out. Everybody does it. You meet somebody and you might meet your new best friend on the range because you're all there doing things that you guys like together, or like similarly. So the other things to think about also is, you know, being there and learning to meet people, seeing what gear works. Hey, I see you're running this. Why are you running that? You know, oh, I got this because it was free, or I got this because it does this for me. And learning, can I look through your optics? So you can see and go to a lot of places and get some more first-hand experience from the guy behind the counter. Is not trying to sell you. You might get some kickbacks from the manufacturer on the backside, where this is a guy who's put his card, you know, hard-earned money, and will tell you, hey, this thing's great, or no, man, I spent a paycheck on this thing. This thing sucks. So that's the other thing is you can learn some valuable experience and be out no money and just the time and effort that it takes to do that. So I think those are things that you can pick up for your first competition and really get yourself ahead and be able to perform and be able to have a ton of fun at these events, because that's truly what they are. I mean, people are so scared about coming to them, oh, you know, concern, anxiety, but people are going to watch you. You're only watching to see when it's their turn to shoot, and everybody's there just to have a good time. And even if you're going to finish last, which I typically do, I'm learning the precision game. Going to those matches, I just get stomped, and I have a ton of fun because going to the range and being with your buddies is just plain fun.
Amen. Anybody got anything to add?
Hey, Lefty, I want to pull one because it's an AK type thing, but 3-Gun McKenzie asked, what's the most ridiculous shenanigan you've seen post at a Kalash competition? I walked up my first year to Kalash Bash, not even joking. I walk up to this table, all your guns are laid on the table, getting ready to shoot, and I see a literal black dildo sticking over like the handguard of my gun, and I'm like, hey, why is there a black dildo on the table? And then I realized it was one of those foregrip ones, literally mounted to a dude's AK with like the tip wrapped over my handguard. And I'm like, I am not at a 3-gun match right now, and this is not USPSA. This is a whole different crowd. The dude just walks up, he grabs it, he's like, let's go. And I'm like, Yeah, this is where we're at right now.
That's great. What about any of you others? What else? What's some outlandish things that you've seen?
So the thing, like I was at Clash Bash and I was just asking dudes, like saw some guys who are in, like 90-degree heat. They're wearing kit and plate carriers. And I'm like, hey, can I take a picture? And immediately, without asking, both of them just get into the squat. And I'm like, oh, yep, this is exactly this. This is
like
where we're
going
at.
to cosplay, right? Comic-Con cosplay.
For stage. No, I'm just kidding.
At Red October this year, a guy was in full mop gear with a Comblock Air type.
It was a full face, like almost like a hazmat suit, but it had a helmet with two big pipes coming out the back and air tanks on the back, and it was a full 360 face mask, so he could see pretty well. But there was a low stage where he had to crawl through the low port. Well, he couldn't shoulder the gun properly, so he had the Russian PEC on the front of his, so he used the laser to engage the targets on that stage.
Right on.
Yeah,
they were hardcore. They get into it.
I asked him, I said, is that system operational? And he goes, there's enough air movement from the system to keep it from fogging, but he's still working on getting parts. But he says it's about 75% operational right now.
That's crazy.
And I couldn't even imagine how hot that was then. Miserable.
All right. Whose turn is it to do the next question?
I got one more thing. So we were at the Clash Bash, and they had the bonfire, and there's lots of guys in the plate carriers who had cutoff shorts that would have made Ranger panties blush, and then he had taken out all his mags, and instead of the magazines, he had put shooters of booze. So, yeah, he was rocking hard there. And like I say, the Clash community, they play hard and they work hard, and it's quite the endeavor. It's definitely something you need to see to believe, because not everybody's going to document on social media because it probably breaks some laws somewhere somehow.
So playing off that, Aura Alpinap says, rumor has it you get style points added to your score for outlandish outfits during AK comps. Is this true? Also, would a pink thong with the Talking Lead logo be appropriate as competition garb? Asking for a friend.
Yeah, so I don't know that you get style points, but they do recognize the hardest LARPer. They give you a trophy, and it's scored based off of unknown judges that are walking around, and you have to be in costume all 3 days. You can't come out of it. And then they pick 5 of those people to come up, and then as long as you're in still kit, you can come up. And it is a like a.
They won a gun this year. They won a KL12 or a Kalashnikov 12-gauge shotgun.
Wow. Yeah, voice-o-meter type thing. Who is LARPing the hardest?
That's awesome. All right, who's
when
next?
I got back from Clash Bash, I shared some pictures with my wife. My wife she's never really took place. I mean, she'll go to the events that were like near our house, and if I was on a podium, she'd want to show up and watch all that stuff. But when I got home from Clash Bash, I showed her pictures, and she was like, well, I think I want to go next year. I was like, oh, okay, no worries. We could do that. And then she says, well, I just need to figure out what kind of outfits we're going to wear. And I kind of looked at her like, I mean, I'm covered in tattoos, and I'm all about having fun and that whole diversity and culture. However, I'm pretty conservative with what I wear when I shoot. I wear the same thing pretty much all the time, like most of these guys. And I don't know. My anxiety just started raising like big time.
Come on, there was the couples costume where they had the sombreros that were no joke, at least like 3 feet in diameter at Clash Bash. That could be you, Matt.
It initially, I fought it, and I thought about it a little bit more, and I was like, if I shot on day one, on the day that Jeremy, Josh, and I helped a bunch, that would give me a bunch of days to just get weird, and that might be my 2022 breakout weirdness.
All right, let's move on. Who's next?
Kyle, I think everybody's answered one.
Has everybody answered one? Ken, did you answer one?
I have none in front of me, but I'm happy to answer.
Okay. How about this one? Tandem Dooley. Has anyone been playing with buffer springs to reduce felt recoil? How do you overcome the mag change speed when running against an AR?
Practice.
Practice.
Really, that's it. A big thing, I don't care what the firearm platform is. Don't dick around with the springs. These things were designed by engineers that are way smarter than we are, and they were designed to function. There are some great companies out there that have worked out the math on these things, and if you really want to change the recoil impulse, go with one of them. But other than that, don't mess with springs. But yeah, practice is everything. It's just a matter of the repetitions.
There you go.
And like Kyle says, building in the efficiency so that when you go to do the mag change, don't knock the mag out, then go to your belt, and then come back up. But if you go to your belt, come back up with the mag, knock the mag out, and then you just change them right there. So things that you can think about, you know, just ways to build in the efficiencies. The more you can multitask when shooting, the quicker that you'll be.
Yeah,
I'm afraid of a Fowler or a Dremel. You can do a little tuning on AKs to get them going easier. Don't be a puss.
Just remember, a Dremel is a 2-drink minimum.
There you go.
Yeah, it is.
All right, is that everybody? Everybody got their questions? Everybody got their
one more piece. So we all know there's 1,001 ways to change a mag on an AK. You really should work out at least 3 different versions of that, because depending upon what position you happen to find yourself in, or what piece of architecture you're jammed in between, or a partner, you're going to have to go from a different direction. So specific with the AK, you really need to work out a couple different mag changes.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right,
on the other end of the spectrum, you could run a 5.56 gun and run this really cool product called a Magpul D60, which is a 60-round drum that holds 60 5.56 rounds. You know how many times I had to reload at Kalash Bash? That many times.
Nice.
How many times I had to reload at any other match? That many times. If I'm shooting that gun, that's another option too.
There you go.
Yes.
But at AK Masters, we had like a standard stage where the gun was on a table, loaded. You had to pick it up and shoot. You know, I think what was it, Adam? Like 8 or 10 targets. And then drop your mag and then reload it and then shoot the same course of fire again. So it's a very USPSA-ish kind of stage. And I practiced the night before for, I don't know, probably an hour in the Hilton, in my room at the Hilton, not in the lobby or anything, and nailed it. But it's not a rock and walk; it's a 5.56, so it's no different than a regular AR-15. But learning how to do that, regardless of what gun is. I mean, it's no different than pistol or any other gun. Like knowing how to put more bullets in it now and reliably, and make sure that thing seats, and make sure that you're ready to get.
Lefty's trying to give some stuff away.
Let's give stuff away. Let's award our listeners that participated here. So I'm going to let you guys pick our winners. Who wins the Seal 1 CLP package?
Who is the dude that you met you didn't know the name of?
Wolverine 30, something like that.
30 cal.
Is it Wolverine 30 cal?
Wolverine 30 cal, yeah, that's our boy. We answered like 4 of his questions. He's got to get something tonight.
Okay.
Wolverine 30 cal, you have won the Seal 1 CLP kit. It comes with the paste, the liquid, the pre-soaked bore patches. It's got brushes in it. It's got rags. Really nice kit. TalkingLead@gmail.com, and let me know what you won and your address and contact info, and we'll send that to you. All right, next one we're going to give away the dump tray, the AK Korner dump tray. So who do you guys want to award this to?
This guy.
How about
I think I'm precluded from winning, but I'd like to win that.
I can awesome. Get you guys. I can hook you guys up. Let me know if you want these.
I'll have to buy one of those.
Absolutely, we'll talk.
Yes.
I like my guy Taylor Williams that asked the adjustable gas question, because I think that's a
good one.
Super fun. Like, can be like one of the best things you could put on your gun and the absolute worst things you could put on your gun, and that's one that really requires some exercise and restraint and consistency.
Okay. Who was that?
Well, and the other part too is to think about is that the money that you would spend on the part to race out your gun, could you use that ammo and just go to a training day and get that much better and not have to spend the money, be ahead of the game?
That's another train of thought. It's definitely another train of thought. And I think if you're on a budget, to answer your question, Lefty, the guy's name is Taylor Williams, T. Williams, 1924. But by the same token, there's a lot of people that you meet in this industry that they're not really concerned about money. I mean, when I first started shooting, I was concerned about money, and I'm not a rich person by any means, but now, I mean, that's just worked in. You know, I'm going to shoot as much as I possibly can without putting myself in a bad spot over any gizmo or gadget, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Unless I'm playing with Jeremy, then I want all the gizmos and gadgets.
Next giveaway, we'll do the Occam Lube. Who wants to award that?
I like that first question. The Molinier's Might, the question that you had there, Lefty, when we kicked it off, like, start strong, we'll finish strong.
Molinier's Might. All right. And are we going to do an IWI?
Yeah.
All right. So pick a winner for the IWI swag package.
The guy who was like, how do we teach these commie bastards about American engineering? So we're going to add it. We're going to add Israeli engineering in there, and he gets the package from us.
Okay.
That's Corey Brown, MKTM4FN.
Hey, rock on.
All right, there you go. So all the winners, talkinglead@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, what you've won, and your address, contact info. Put your shirt sizes in there in case they want to throw some shirts in there, and we'll make sure we get all that out to you. So great episode, guys.
We still need to figure out a way to give away the Galil that we were going to do at NRA, and then they canceled it. Yeah.
So I think our last episode, the 12th episode, would be a great episode to do that on. So that gives them a month. We got a month to prepare for that. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Sweet.
And we'll just have a big package, and we'll do like a gleam, and then that way everybody goes and likes, and they get more entries.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will send me an email this week, and I'll send you a 5.56 pistol.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Too. So look. Done, and then they got to sign in. We'll rock it out.
All right, I'll shoot you an email and we'll go over the specifics. So that'll work. So all right, lead heads, there you go. Another episode of the AK Korner in the books. Very educational, very fun. I want to thank all our guests. James, thank you so much for taking the time to be on. Adam, appreciate it. Ken, great finally getting to meet you kind of in person, but we'll have to set something up to where we actually meet. Matt, good seeing you again. Kyle, appreciate you taking the time to be on out there on the left coast.
It was a pleasure.
Yes, sir. And then, of course, Jeremy, as always, man, really couldn't do this without IWI's support. And then, co-hosting today, you were phenomenal. Brian, you gave Brian a run for his money.
Hey. Brian walked up to me, and I was beat. I mean, I was wore out at Red October. And he's like, hey, man, and he wanted to have like a full-blown conversation. And I had GOA pulling me in one direction and Brian Nelson pulling me in another. And I'm like, Brian, I'm so sorry, but I got to go this other direction.
Yeah. Well, we'll set up a phone call or something like that. But, yeah, keep Brian in your thoughts, guys, because he's sick. I don't know exactly what's wrong with him. I'm going to call and check on him tomorrow, but I'm sure he'll be back in action. He's too big of a dude to stay down for long.
Yeah.
All right, Leadhead. So make sure you tune in each and every month. The final episode coming up next month, and we'll probably have an awesome giveaway, maybe a Galil involved with that, as you just heard. So stay tuned for that. And until then, practice, call your local ranges. Get in touch with these guys. Well, real quick, how can they get in touch with you guys? If they want to ask you a question, if they're in your area, maybe you guys can give them some personal tips on stuff. Or maybe you don't want people contacting you at all.
I think Instagram is probably the most preferred platform for...
So which one of you guys want to give Jeremy's number out?
Oh, they've got his. They know him on Instagram. Everybody's got him on the grams.
You may or may not like that conversation.
What's your grams, James?
I am Car Racer 36 on Instagram. Feel free to hit me about racing, cars, shooting. I'm in Dallas, 90 minutes west of Dallas. So if you're in Texas, hit me up. We'll go to a match.
Very cool. Adam?
Anything Star Wars.
Oh, right. Hey, we need to talk.
Mine's Adam _SASA on Instagram, and then Facebook is Adam Litke _competitive shooter. and Star Wars guns, stuff like that, I'm down for it, man. Let's talk. And then I responded to a bunch of the questions on the Instagram, so they can see me on there.
Good deal. Good deal. Kyle?
On Instagram, I'm just Kyle, Kyle, Litzi, Litzie, or you can hit up our company, which is Unrivaled_Technologies.
Cool. Matt?
My Instagram is Kitzmiller_3gun. I'm there all the time, probably way more often than I need to be, but I'm pretty happy to field all the questions all the time.
Very cool. Okay, Ken?
Instagram is Ken_Allen_Training, so Ken Allen Training. And they can also hit me up on my website, www.kenallentraining.us, and I can reach out from there and happy to talk about anything you need.
There you go. And Jeremy, you want to give yours again?
It's Jeremy M. Gresham on Instagram, or if you hit up IWI US, I manage that account as well, or if you just call IWI, if I'm there, they'll patch you through, but most of the time I'm not. So talk to any of my guys, and we'll take care of you. The reason why I'm not there is because I'm on the range in an event.
There you go.
But yeah, feel free to hit us up anytime, and we'll take care of you.
And make sure you go our other sponsors, Occam Defense. Again, Brian couldn't be here. OccamDefense.com, at Occam Defense Solutions on the grams. Mission First Tactical, MissionFirstTactical.com, SEAL1, SEAL1.com. And let them know how much you appreciate them sponsoring the shows. And then get our AK Korner shirts and hoodies at Factory 47. Use code LEADHEAD, get 10% off. That's Factory with a K at Factory 47. Until next month, Leadheads, again, keep your eyes peeled because we got that giveaway coming up, and we'll have details coming out soon.